Baili Hongzhuang opened Shui Haoling's Qiankun bag and saw a pile of gold coins, which instantly made her eyes brighten. Shui Haoling had not lied. He was indeed very rich, but now all his money had fallen into the hands on Baili Hongzhuang. It seems that Shui Haoling's family still understand that money makes the world go around. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. She had always thought that with money it's always the more the better. She would never say no thank you to more money. But this guy isn't as strong as Master. Under the promise of a big meal, Little Black could not help but flatter her. Truth was that there were really so much money within Shui Haoling's Qiankun bag, but that guy was just not as domineering as Baili Hongzhuang. Even though Shui Haoling spent a lot of money every day, but if the price was too high, he could not help but chicken out. Putting away the 2 Qiankun bags, Baili Hongzhuang was ready to go out and buy some food that the beast could eat in the Chaos Ring. After all, she promised him a big meal, and the amount of food these 2 foodies, Little Black and Little White, could eat, it was simply amazing. Jingqi and the others reluctantly left the inn. They felt as if they had really lost face today, but they could do nothing about it. There's a lot of people in the world who were good at spending money, but there were very few people who would buy an inn in such a way. When thinking about this white-dressed woman, everyone is feeling immensely helpless. They couldn't find even the slightest weakness. Whether it was appearance, strength, or background, it all seemed to be good, which really gave them unspeakable frustrations. Xiaolonmei left the inn and went to another. When it came to it, during the tournament, all that mattered was strength and nothing else. However, this white-dressed woman had really made him interested. Such a perfect woman. Only a few men would be uninterested in her. Shui Haoling, do you know the specific information of these cultivators from Kanglan College? Xiaolonmei asked. Hearing the question, Shui Haoling shook his head. Although he liked to inquire about news, he never put the Kanglan College's special enrollment students in his eyes, so he had never looked for their information. It seemed that they really made a mistake. If they had some sort of previous understanding about them, they would not have ended up in this kind of situation. When the cultivators of Beihai College reached the second inn, Shui Haoling was ready to pay when his eyes suddenly turned shocked and his expression ugly. His hands patted his body, and his face became more and more pale. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Shui Haoling, what are you doing? Jingqi was impatient. What had happened before had already made her unhappy. Now she just wanted to rest, but even this was delayed by Shui Haoling. My Qiankun bag is gone, Shui Haoling exclaimed. There was a lot of treasures inside his Qiankun bag. When it was lost, the loss would simply be too great. When Shui Haoling spoke, the expressions of the others changed slightly. Check again. Are you sure you did not lose it when you played with it before? Shui Haoling shook his head. Impossible. I had the Qiankun bag with me when I left the inn, as I could put the gold coins into it as we left. He had always protected his Qiankun bag. Even a thief couldn't steal it from him, and now it was gone. Jingqi did not care about what Shui Haoling was saying. She just wanted to rest quickly, and thus she reached out for her own Qiankun bag. It was just that when she touched where the Qiankun bag was supposed to be, it was empty. Why did my Qiankun bag disappear? Jingqi suddenly said in a hurry. It must have been stolen by the students of Kanglan College. Jinglian's face was also showing her worry and anger. Let us go find and confront them. Jingqi nodded her head. It must be them. Otherwise, the Qiankun bag can't be lost just like that. Xiaolonmei looked at Jingqi and the others indifferently. He then took out some coins and paid for their rooms before he said, You have no proof. Even if you go, you can only argue with them. As soon as his voice had fallen, Xiaolonmei paid no more attention to the others and directly headed towards the room on the second floor. He never liked trouble, but he had not stopped Jingqi from creating trouble before. Even so, he did not want to continue accompanying them like this. When she saw the move of Xiaolonmei, Jingqi's face became difficult to look at. It was obvious that he was not going to pay any attention to them anymore. Big sister, Jingqi angrily cried out. I can't swallow this breath. Jinglian's expression showed a strong helplessness. Jingqi we can only endure. If Xiaolon Mei went forward, they might have a chance, but he already indicated that he was not going to participate. They had no chance at all, and even if they went there, they might not even be a match for the white-dressed woman. Lu Jingqi understood the meaning of Lu Jinglin, but this bad breath, she really couldn't swallow it. She was hopping mad. I will kill them. Otherwise, I won't be unable to endure this hatred. Xue Haoling's face was blue. He had never before eaten such a big loss. He had brought a lot of his things with him on this trip to the Qing Dynasty. There were many rare items in the Imperial capital. He originally planned to buy some cultivation resources and rare objects in the Imperial capital, now that he has lost it all and they have not even reached the capital yet. How could he accept this? As he thought about this, he truly hated the cultivators of Kanglan College. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo were standing together and looking at another two middle-aged men. The atmosphere was tense. I did not expect that in over 10 years, there is no progress at all in the Kanglan College's students. They even were so rude as to cut through a woman's dress. Their methods are truly shameful. One of the middle-aged men took the lead in speaking. He was wearing a silver robe, and his voice was filled with disdain. Mo Xinghai, your students already lost. Be less arrogant. Lu Huayan did not care about the ridicule in the other's words. Cultivators only care about success or failure. The process was unimportant. We don't think this can be regarded as losing. You use some unconventional ways. Duan Yingwu coldly snorted. Hearing this, Fu Hongbo sneered. Duan Yingwu, you were a mentor for many years at Beihai College. Nothing has changed at all. We used unconventional ways to win. Well, at least our students did not bully the civilians. I don't know how much better your students are, but their character sure is poor. Fu Hongbo's mouth curled into a smirk as he looked at the other two teachers. Listening to Fu Hongbo's words, the expressions on Duan Yingwu and Mo Xinghai turned ugly. They were angry in their heats. They had not expected the students of the two colleges to meet here, but they were all watching the scene from a distance. They had not stopped it before, because they too wanted to see who would emerge victorious when the colleges collided. They were always very confident, and they were sure that the winner would be the students from Beihai College. They would never have thought that the results turned out to be so different from their thoughts. The students from Kanglan College actually suppressed them. They also understood that although the method that Zhiqing used was rather underhanded, Baili Hongzhuang had really defeated Lu Jinglin, and the others had not been defeated either. Lu Huayan smiled slightly as he looked at Fu Hongbo. Fu Hongbo never spoke much, but when he did, he completely rendered others speechless. Today was not a part of the tournament. When we reach Lingyin College, your pride will be a joke. Duan Yingwu sneered, no longer paying attention to Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo. Instead, he directly left together with Mo Xinghai. They went to see their students, because today's actions had truly left them with no face left. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbo looked at each other and saw that their faces were both filled with happy smiles. These students and mentors of Beihai College were a bit too proud. They could not help but feel that their own students were much better. Those little guys really brought us some honor today, Lu Huayan smiled. Duan Yingwu is already mad. I am afraid he must have rushed to scold his students. Lu Huayan raised an eyebrow. Do you want to go visit our students now? Fu Hongbo thought for a moment. Let them grow up on their own. Let's go to see the vice principal. They were not useful to Gong Xiaoqing and the others right now. Should they just go there for the sake of praising them? Hearing this, Lu Huan nodded his head. Okay, the vice principal must have waited for us for a while. The night slowly descended on the city, and Baili Hongzhuang was standing at the window looking out on the unusually lively night view of Languang town. There was a faint smile on her lips. In the time she has been gone, many things has become different, but the scene in front of her with the bustling atmosphere did not change at all. Master, let's go. Little Black and Little White came out. They had been waiting for their boss to treat them to a delicious meal. Knowing that the two little guys could no longer wait, Baili Hongzhuang smiled and nodded his head sure. Baili Hongzhuang walked out of the inn. Zhiqing and the others had not rested for so many days already and were tired. All they wanted to do was take a rest. Because of this, Baili Hongzhuang decided to go on her own. She was just going to buy something. It would not take too long for her to come back. Walking on the street, although it was already night, the scene was much more lively than it was during daytime. The night scene even made her slightly sentimental. Little Black and Little White was asking for a lot of things, and whenever they made a request, Baili Hongzhuang bought them all the things they wanted. Even Baishi was unable to refrain from eating. Today's harvest was quite good, and Baili Hongzhuang felt like she should reward them. Soon Baili Hongzhuang made it to the marketplace of Languang town. Just standing on outside the market, Baili Hongzhuang could hear the hustle and bustle coming from inside, and could not help but feel attracted to it. The marketplace was the most lively place in every city, and most of the things sold here were related to cultivation. Although it was mainly ordinary cultivation resources you could find at the marketplace, if you found something rare, you couldn't help but feel very lucky and fulfilled. As Baili Hongzhuang entered the marketplace, everyone who saw her had a fascinated gleam in their eyes. Even if they had seen beautiful women before, they had never seen someone as beautiful as Baili Hongzhuang. Feeling the gazes of everyone, the eyebrows of Baili Hongzhuang wrinkled slightly. She had entered the market on a whim. Originally, she had not intended to come here. She sighed to herself, reminding herself that in the future, when entering such places, she ought to wear a black cloak so that she would not attract unnecessary troubles. Such a good-looking girl. I have never seen someone looking this stunning before. This girl is a student of Qiankun College. I advise you to not cause trouble, otherwise you won't know how you died. There were many people in the crowd who had seen her earlier. The act outside the restaurant earlier was enough to make her famous in all of Languang town. Hearing what the person said, the man snorted, "You said this girl is a girl of the Qiankun College? Aside from a student from one of the 3 colleges, how many girls can have such a temperament?" The person who spoke could not help but snort at the man before he continued to focus on his own stall. The man who had originally had some underhanded ideas in his heart also gave up. The cultivators from the Qiankun College were not normal people. He could not afford to offend them. He might make a big mistake, and he did not want to die young. It was not just him. Everyone who had been standing around felt a chill in their hearts after listening to the words. Seeing that the situation eased up, Baili Hongzhuang was also relieved. It seemed as if the big fight in the afternoon had some benefits. Baili Hongzhuang looked at the different stalls while walking, but went straight towards the exit. There was nothing that caught her interest. Even so, she did not feel disappointed. After all, most of the things in the marketplaces were used by ordinary cultivators. The real treasures had already been sold at high price, so they are hard to find. However, just as she was about to leave, her eyes fell on a stall. In the light of sight was a black parchment roll randomly placed on the stall. The parchment roll looked ordinary, but she could feel some energy fluctuations with her strong spiritual sense. Her spiritual strength was very outstanding amongst cultivators. The fluctuations of this scroll was very small. If her strength was not high enough, she would never have noticed. Baili Hongzhuang stood in front of the stall and looked at the things that was placed upon it. There were some herbs, demon crystals, and weapons, but Baili Hongzhuang was not lacking any of these. In addition, there were some unknown small things of no use, and the parchment roll was placed together with them. Baishi's gaze fell on the demon crystal. It walked all the way towards the demon crystal, causing the others to stop and look at it. "Girl, what do you want to buy?" The owner was a middle-aged man. Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang was in front of his stall, he could not help but ask. Not waiting for Baili Hongzhuang to answer, Baishi jumped onto the stall, and the 2 claws held onto the demon core. Seeing Baishi's actions, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang lit up slightly. This little guy understood her thoughts. Baili Hongzhuang took Baishi and held him up, while he was still holding onto the demon crystal in his paws, as if he was refusing to let go. The stall owner also felt it was quite amusing after seeing the appearance of Baishi. "Girl, your pet is quite funny." Baili Hongzhuang smiled helplessly. He just liked all these beautiful things. The stall owner nodded his head slightly. It seemed that this contracted pet was purely for appearance purposes. It did not seem to have any fighting ability. This kind of pet was very cute, and they usually liked pretty things. It was normal for this beast to look at the demon crystal right now. How much does this demon crystal cost? Baili Hongzhuang asked. This is a demon crystal from a second-ranked demon beast. It costs 100 gold coins. Baili Hongzhuang's eyebrows raised slightly. I remember that the price of the demon crystal of the demon fox is normally around 90 gold coins. Your price is a bit expensive. Hearing this, the stall owner looked a bit sheepish. He was not aware that this young girl knew so much about the market. Girl, this demon fox can't be caught in our country. The Beast Mountain range is far from us, so the mercenaries needs to work hard to get it. That's enough. Baili Hongzhuang looked at Baishi in her arms, but it seems as if it has no intention of letting go of the demon crystal, holding onto it tightly. The stall owner was also nervous. It would be such a shame if the girl left just like that. Seeing the situation, Baili Hongzhuang said helplessly, Seller, this demon crystal is really expensive. Why don't you give me something else as well? She had previous experience that if you wanted a treasure at a trading market, you could never directly ask the price for that item. If you did, the owner would directly raise the price, or he might not sell it. After all, such a thing that no one wanted to buy, if she suddenly wanted it, everyone would become suspicious. Therefore, her current actions were the safest approach. Girl, this is a small business after all. The stall owner pretended to be helpless, but deep inside he was feeling lucky. These things aren't that good, but you can pick 2 things amongst them. Baili Hongzhuang laughed in her heart. It seemed that her goal has been reached. After picking a good-looking ornament, she picked the parchment scroll. These 2 things, then. That's fine, the stall owner smiled, and he felt it was very profitable. These 2 things were simply not worth any money. He did not want to cheat the girl, but she seemed satisfied with these 2 things, so he was also happy. Baili Hongzhuang left the marketplace and reached out to stroke Baishi's fur. You are so smart, she praised him. She was thinking of buying something else, and Baishi had understood her idea. As a result, the stall owner had no suspicions at all. Listening to the praising words of Baili Hongzhuang, Baishi could not help but being somewhat smug. It excitedly licked Baili Hongzhuang's hand and said, Naturally. Stinky God, Little Black and Little White cursed, but Baishi did not care. These 2 guys were just cursing because they had not been praised. They were just upset that they weren't beasts that their master could bring out. It is getting late, so let us go back, Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. However, after walking a bit, her expression changed slightly. Her eyes turned dark as a bit of killing intent flashed within. Master, someone is following us. Little Black's expression was solemn. Previously, the master had always acted together with the Kanglan College's students, but now they have acted alone for the first time. These people have appeared out of nowhere. It seems that they have been following them for a while. There are 3 people following us. All of them are in the Red Realm, and I cannot judge their exact strength. Little White analyzed, but his voice was somewhat heavy. Baili Hongzhuang's strength was at the 2nd stage of the Red Realm. With her age, it was already very good, but when facing these opponents, she would encounter a great pressure. Unless Little Black attacked, then it would be fairly simple, but if he truly attacked, then they might be too eye-catching and completely exposed. There's still me. Baishi was unhappy that Little Black and Little White dared to ignore it. Little Black and White had actually forgotten that Baishi had broken through just recently, and its strength was now at the 5th stage of the Red Realm. It was a big boost in strength. Since you have appeared, stop hiding and come out. It was already late, and the people on the street had almost all dispersed. Only a few people were packing up their things and going home. The night was completely black, and Baili Hongzhuang had to admit that the other party had truly picked a good time to move. With the words of Baili Hongzhuang falling, a man and 2 women appeared in front of her. They were all wearing black clothes, and their faces were covered with a cloth, so that it was impossible to see their appearances at all. Your perception is sharp, the woman on the left said, but you will not live past tonight. The eyes of Baili Hongzhuang were deep like a well. She was alert, but not fearful, and there was no panic at all. Who sent you? Han Xiling? So far, only 2 people would send red real mead cultivators to kill her, Han Xiling and Ji Yun'er. Contraction between herself and Ji Yun'er was not small, and even though she later resolved her poison, with her bad temperament, it was not easy to write off the previous resentment. With Han Xiling, although she looked very elegant and gentle on the surface, Baili Hongzhuang could easily conclude that her heart was black. She would use any means to achieve her goals. You do not need to know this, the man in the middle whispered. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Since you're coming to take my life, you should at least tell me who is going to kill me. We are from Shitian Tower. We kill people, and that is all that matters. The man's voice is low, and the 2 women by his side immediately moved, all of them rushing towards Baili Hongzhuang. Shitian Tower? This was the first time Baili Hongzhuang heard about them. It should be an assassination organization. Since the other party actually looked for an assassination organization to deal with her, then it was likely to be Han Xiling. This was her style. Now that Di Baichun had returned to Tiangang's sect, Han Xiling naturally couldn't use her own hands, but letting an assassination organization deal with her, it would undoubtedly let her wash her hands of it. With Ji Yun'er's impulsive temper, she would never order an organization to deal with her. She would send her minions instead. Looking for an assassination organization? She wasn't that smart. The strength within the 2 women's bodies surged in an instant. The majestic power burst out of the 3rd stage of the Red Realm. Baili Hongzhuang looked seriously at the 2 women. She was currently at the 2nd stage of the Red Realm, but she firmly believed that she would be able to battle those at the 3rd stage. However, she was just still worried about the man standing at the side. She still did not know what strength he wielded. Judging the situation, the man's strength was clearly stronger than the 2 women. The reason he had not attacked yet was because he was not willing to attack just yet. When Baili Hongzhuang looked at the man, she noticed that he was also looking at her, albeit with a disdainful gleam in his eyes. He didn't really understand why they all needed to attack. Baili Hongzhuang was merely a 2nd stage Red Realm cultivator. Was it really necessary for all of them to attack? The employer had made it clear that they had to come together to kill Baili Hongzhuang. It could be seen from this that the employer did not want Baili Hongzhuang to have the slightest chance of survival. And the payment given by their employer was also rich. They truly got a bargain this time. Baili Hongzhuang's energy was also surging in her body, and her eyes locked onto the 2 women. The 2 women did not intend to waste any time. They directly rushed at Baili Hongzhuang. Their bodies were like 2 shadows in the dark, aiming straight at Baili Hongzhuang's vital points. As an assassin, they wanted to kill their opponent right away, so attacking the vital points was the best solution. The perfect and alluring face was immensely cold, and Baili Hongzhuang was not slow. Yuanli gathered between her 2 palms, and she did not hesitate to greet the 2 female assassins. When the 2 assassins saw that Baili Hongzhuang had not escaped, and even took the opportunity to greet their attack, their eyes were filled with disdain, their lips curled into a sneer. One idiot. The cultivation base was weaker than them, but still thought about resisting. What was the difference between this and suicide? Boom! The fists of Baili Hongzhuang quickly collided with the fists of the female assassins. As they collided, Yuanli shot out, and a terrible shockwave wafted out, showing that the power was terrible. However, during this clash of power, the eyes of the 2 assassins could not help but be filled with surprise. It was to be expected that with their cultivation base, and with both of them attacking at the same time, this Baili Hongzhuang only had a dead end. However, they were shocked that even though they used their strength, which was higher than Baili Hongzhuang, she was not injured. I did not expect that you have some strength. One of the women snorted, her eyes boiling with humiliation and anger. The 2 of them had joined forces but been blocked by a weaker cultivator. This was a great shame to them. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into a slight playful arc. This is not all I got. Next, Baili Hongzhuang did not waste any time, but instantly took some steps forward. She took the initiative to attack one of the assassins. Her best choice now was to attack them one by one. If she could kill one of the women first, then her situation would be much better. Boom! The two women continued to attack with their palms, and the tyrannical and unmatched strength continued to explode from the two figures. However, the more they fought, the more fear the two women started to feel. The strength of Baili Hongzhuang was not at all like someone at the second stage of the Red Realm. Baili Hongzhuang was not a normal cultivator of the second stage of the Red Realm. She was a true peerless powerhouse. She had plenty of combat experience and could in no way be compared to normal practitioners. Although she was only at the second stage of the Red Realm, and she was at a disadvantage, she could use her countless experience and her temperament to raise her strength to a new level. Not to mention, with all her knowledge from her previous life, she had made an extremely stable foundation to her cultivation base, and she was definitely the strongest among her own rank. Boom! Another hard collision caused one of the female assassins to step a few steps back, a fearful and shocked expression on her face. Baili Hongzhuang's strength is simply too much. Even she couldn't compare to it. You are just a second-stage Red Realm practitioner. How can your strength be so overwhelming? The female assassin could not help but ask suspiciously. She could not help but think that the information they had received was wrong. That Baili Hongzhuang was in fact not a second-stage Red Realm practitioner, but that she had kept her strength hidden. The lips of Baili Hongzhuang were slightly hooked into an enchanting and charming smile. Why should I tell you? For cultivators, power was extremely important, especially a small difference between them could be enough to cause problems when fighting. After spending time tempering her body under the waterfall, she often used medicines to improve her body's strength. Although no one could see it when looking at her, her body is far tougher and more powerful than the average cultivator. Not only this, but she also cultivated a body martial art that she had gotten from the Baili family, the Jade body technique. Body martial arts were quite different from ordinary martial arts. Its only purpose was to temper the body. The Jade body technique, when cultivated to completion, the body would be comparable to Jade, indestructible. The Jade body technique was divided into 3 layers. Up until now, she had only succeeded in cultivating the first layer of the martial arts. As for the later 2 layers, it would take a long time to reach. However, in her current situation, the first layer of the Jade body technique was already enough to give her a lot of help. Hearing the ridiculing words of Baili Hongzhuang, the face of the woman turned ugly. Their strength was undoubtedly higher, but it felt as if the other party held the upper hand. They wanted to kill Baili Hongzhuang to teach her not to be too arrogant. Baishi was quietly staying on the side, posing as a cute monster without any attacking power, as if it did not even know that its master was in danger. Master had already told it before that she would take care of the 2 female assassins, while the target of Baishi was the male assassin. He only needed to pay attention to the male assassin, not let him attack, and when he tried, stop him. Baishi's round eyes kept staring at the male assassin in a seemingly careless manner. As long as the male assassin made the slightest movement, he would pounce on him right away. Fire Fist. The 2 female assassins saw that during their offensive, Baili Hongzhuang had not at all lost ground, and their faces, because ugly as they no longer held anything back, and even used their martial arts. One right and one left, both of them reaching towards Baili Hongzhuang, blocking all her retreat options. They were going to force Baili Hongzhuang to return these attacks. They did not believe that under such an advance, she would not be able to hold on. When a male assassin saw that the 2 women had directly displayed their Fire Fist martial arts, there was a smile in his eyes. It seemed that this battle was about to end. Their mission would soon be completed. Baili Hongzhuang's pupils instantly contracted, but her heart was calm. These 2 women had never thought that Baili Hongzhuang could make it out of this blockade, and when they finally realized it, it was too late. Their fists had already collided into one another. Boom! The 2 fire fists collided with a tyrannical strength. Both of them were backing up a few steps as their faces turned pale. However, just as one of the women stepped back, Baili Hongzhuang had already arrived behind her with her own attack, Breaking Storm. The majestic Yuanli surged from Baili Hongzhuang's fist and did not hesitate at all to attack the woman. The male assassin was shocked after seeing this and yelled out, "Be careful." However, all of this was happening so fast as lightning and thunder. Even though the male assassin called out, there was no time for the woman to react. Boom! The breaking storm smashed into the back of the woman. Under this fierce attack, the woman's body flew straight forward and fell heavily on the ground. At the same time, a mouthful of blood sprayed out of her mouth, her breath weakening before completely cutting off. Baili Hongzhuang was still cold. She had timed this attack perfectly to give a fatal blow to the woman. In this kind of siege she was experiencing, she could not give her opponents even the slightest chance of survival. Once she found the opportunity, she had to grasp it. The deep black phoenix eyes were completely calm. Not the slightest unrest could be seen within them. The bright moonlight shone upon Baili Hongzhuang, and her cold figure gave of a cold atmosphere. Especially the smile that lingered on her blood-red lips, it was quite chilling. The expressions of the male and final female assassin changed a bit. According to the information they had gotten, she was merely a student at Qiankun College. Most of the students in Qiankun College were young people, and there were not many who had actually killed another human before. However, after killing someone, there was no tension in Baili Hongzhuang's expression. Instead, there was some enjoyment. As assassins, they had a lot of blood on their hands, but they could still remember the panic and nervousness first time they killed someone. The two were shocked when they saw the reaction of Baili Hongzhuang. According to the words of their tower master, those who behaved like Baili Hongzhuang were born to be killers. Now that I had seen this kind of reaction from a simple college student, it was simply unbelievable. Baili Hongzhuang did not stop there. She went to the other female killer. He wanted a battle. For those who wanted to kill her, she would never be soft. Being an assassin, you should expect to be killed. Feeling the coldness of Baili Hongzhuang, the last woman also felt a heavy pressure on her. Previously, the two of them had not been her opponent. Now she was the only one surviving. Naturally, she would be even less of an opponent now. Why are you not attacking? The woman could not help but look at the man behind her. At this point, he could not help but be a little shocked by Baili Hongzhuang. Hearing the words of the woman, the male assassin slowly awoke from his stupor. If he did not come out, it would end in both women's death. Losing one member was already a great shame for them. If he lost two companions against a second-stage Red Realm cultivator, he would become the joke of Shitian Tower when he returned. The battle is over. You can go die now. The man's voice was bold, and his eyes gleamed with a gloomy, killing intent in the dark night. At the same time, a violent and volatile energy exploded out from his body. He was actually a fifth-stage Red Realm practitioner. The fifth stage of the Red Realm was a good strength when it came to assassins. However, if he wanted to rely on this strength to put her to death, it was not enough. Only at the fifth stage of the Red Realm, and you dare to threaten my life. You overestimate yourself. Baili Hongzhuang's red lips hooked up in a confident and calm smile. Baishi, who was standing on the side, had long since been unable to hold back. Since it had broken through, it had not once attacked, and now it finally had a chance to fight. This man was so arrogant. It had to bite his neck off. Listening to Baili Hongzhuang, the man could not help but hesitate. Had the mentors from the college arrived? However, when he looked around him, he saw that there was no movement, and he let go of the fear in his heart. You are only a second-stage Red Realm cultivator. You sure talk big. Aren't you afraid of having your tongue cut off? The female assassin sneered. Baili Hongzhuang's one brow slightly raised, and she chuckled. Since you are two, then we will also be two. Let's fight 2 against 2. When the words were said, the male and the female assassin could not help but look around. Did the mentors really appear? Although they were confident in their strength, they knew that they were not the opponents of the mentors from the college. A feeling of tension and fear spread in their hearts, and they kept looking around. If they saw the appearance of the mentors, they would run away in an instant. There was nothing around them. No movement at all. You lied to me. The face of the man turned green with shame. He had been tricked by a simple sentence by Baili Hongzhuang. What embarrassment this was. Why would I lie to you? Baili Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Your mentor hasn't arrived. The male assassin gnashed his teeth with anger. Baili Hongzhuang was showing far too much confidence, so he was easily tricked by her. Baili Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders innocently. When did I say that my mentors were here? What's more, there are 2 mentors at my college. If they come, it would be a 3 against 2. Reaching this point, Baili Hongzhuang helplessly shook her head. As far as UIQ is concerned, how could you even become an assassin? Being this stupid, it was a miracle that he was still alive. Little Black and Little White were also chuckling. These 2 assassins were simply too stupid. The situation that had worried them before was now easy to solve. They had already passed the dangerous part, so they had nothing to worry about. Naturally, they did not mind humiliating the assassin. Then why would you say 2 against 2? There is no one else apart from you. The woman could not help but say in a very loud voice. Although the ridicule in Baili Hongzhuang's words made her angry, her alertness as an assassin made her endure, trying to understand what was going on. After all, if there really is one more person here, they might suffer. Baili Hongzhuang pointed at Baishi. I meant this guy. When the words of Baili Hongzhuang fell, the male and female assassin could not help but look at the small beast, and then they laughed out loud. What joke are you making? The male assassin laughed. This one. Based on what? An ornamental pet? The woman could also not help but feel that Baili Hongzhuang was really stupid. Pets like this is really not their enemy. If they wanted to, then just one sword strike would kill it completely. Baishi, these 2 guys are laughing at you. Little Black could not help but wish for the world to be completely chaotic. Hurry up and show them your might. They think they are tigers when they are just sick cats. Little White also added. These 2 guys were actually quite unhappy that they could not attack. So instead, they hoped that Baishi would teach them a lesson. In the eyes of Baishi was also a thick anger. He was a beastmaster, and now he was ridiculed by these 2 brainless idiots? This was simply unbearable. Master, I want to kill them, Baishi said angered. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes contained a bit of mischief when she looked to the 2 people. You have angered my contract beast. You have to be prepared to withstand its anger. Haha, she is really an idiot. The man could not help but laugh as he was thinking about how this college student was a true idiot. Go on. Baili Hongzhuang did not care about the man's ridicule, because soon he would know how stupid he was right now. Next, Baili Hongzhuang directly took out her colored glass sword and did not hesitate to attack the woman. The woman was also vigilant when she saw this. Although the contract beast was useless, Baili Hongzhuang was not to be underestimated. Just as Baili Hongzhuang was about to attack the woman, the male assassin never put Baishi in his eyes. Instead, he picked his weapon and got ready to attack Baili Hongzhuang. However, it was a tragedy for the male assassin. The male assassin only felt a white light flashing towards him. He suddenly felt his hairs stand on ends. He could feel a strong sense of crisis in his heart. This sense of crisis was bigger than any other he had ever felt in his many years as an assassin. Here, how could someone pose such a great threat to him? Not waiting for the male assassin to react, Baishi had swiftly rushed up to him and used his sharp teeth to bite down the neck of the male assassin. The man only felt a sharp pain in his neck. He did not even have the time to react before it was directly bitten through by Baishi. The second before he died, the man finally realized what had killed him. It was the contract beast he had never looked at before. He still did not understand. How could an ornamental contract beast directly bite his neck? He was a 5th stage Red Realm practitioner. The defense of his body was much stronger than that of ordinary people. However, seeing this result, Baili Hongzhuang was not surprised at all. How hard were the demon crystals? Baishi liked to eat them with no hindrance. The man's defensive power was simply nothing in front of Baishi's teeth. The woman was stunned by the scene, and she could not believe that the man had died so easily. When she looked at Baishi again, her eyes had completely changed. What kind of beast is this? You just need to know that he is not a normal beast. Baili Hongzhuang's voice was cold and indifferent. The glass sword also stabbed the woman at the exact same time. Baili Hongzhuang collected the 3 assassins' Qiankun bags. It seemed that she was also getting a lot of wealth this evening. Clap! Just as the spoils of war had been collected, Baili Hongzhuang heard a clapping sound coming from behind her. Listening to the movements behind her, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang turned solemn. She was unaware of who it could be at the current point in time. However, when she saw the appearance of the person, she could not help but blink in surprise. The man was dressed in a soft black robe with blue silk embroideries. The handsome face was as if God had carved it from the finest jade. The dark, deep eyes were filled with a slight smile, and these eyes were instantly recognizable for Baili Hongzhuang. His eyes were different from Baichi's. While Baichi's were deep as the ocean, filled with confidence, the man in front of her was black as the night, holding a suffocating pressure and despair within. "It's you?" Baili Hongzhuang stared at the man in front of her. This was the second time they had met each other. This person was no one else than Mo Yunjue. The Mo Yunjue she had met outside the mountain range back when the beast horde appeared. "We meet again, Baili girl." Mo Yunjue chuckled. His eyes either intentionally or unintentionally swept across a row of houses on the left. Behind these houses, 2 men and 1 woman frowned when they noticed the gaze of Mo Yunjue. "How come Mo Yunjue arrived here? It seems that he already noticed us." There was a hint of coldness in the woman's words. "Our mission today can't be completed. Mo Yunjue's reputation is outstanding. Although I've never fought him, we are hiding well, and he still noticed us. He should be very strong. Since we have missed the opportunity, let's leave," one of the men said. The other man nodded his head. "I did not expect that all 3 of them would die like this. It was a waste of a good opportunity." The 3 people no longer hesitated and left. Being an assassin was like this. As soon as they were exposed, they would have to look for another opportunity. Baili Hongzhuang could not help but look at the row of houses before she turned to Mo Yunjue. "Thank you." "Oh." Mo Yunjue raised an eyebrow. "I don't seem to know what you were thanking me for. If you did not arrive, I am afraid that other group of assassins would not have left." Baili Hongzhuang's beautiful face showed some signs of confidence. She too had realized that there was someone hiding there. The fluctuations were incredibly small, so she was not sure if they were there, but now everything was okay. With Han Xiling's temper, once she attacked, she wanted to make completely sure that there was no chance whatsoever of survival. Therefore, the first 3 assassins were just a scouting team. If they could kill her then, that would obviously be for the best, but if they couldn't, then another group would appear. She did not doubt that the second group of killers were even stronger than the previous ones. From this point of view, the assassins from Shitian Tower seemed to work together. Listening to Baili Hongzhuang, a flash of appreciation appeared in Mo Yunjue's eyes. The performance of Baili Hongzhuang had already stunned him. He did not think that the 3 who had hidden so well were noticed by her. It was really unbelievable. "You sure are clever. It seems that the person who wants to kill you is going to be disappointed." Mo Yunjue's lips curved upwards as he laughed. "It seems that the Beastmaster has advanced quite a lot in your hands." Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly, faintly answering, "It has broken through once." Towards this Mo Yunjue, she has a feeling of uncertainty. When they were in a mountain range, they just made a deal. She always thought that Mo Yunjue had a heavy background and story about him. The last time they obviously reached an agreement, and Mo Yunjue also helped her once, so she was also grateful. "Baili girl, don't you live around the Luoyin mountain range? What are you doing here in the Qing Dynasty?" Mo Yunjue seemed to feel the gratitude of Baili Hongzhuang, and he asked something that made him curious. In fact, he was a cold and callous person who never had the desire to speak with people. Only this Baili Hongzhuang was different. When he saw her the first time, he felt that she was different from other people. At that time, he was severely injured. He was quite sure that he would not be able to survive, but this woman actually helped him get rid of the poison. Therefore, now that he had seen Baili Hongzhuang again, he could help but be interested. "I'm going to Lingyin College," Baili Hongzhuang said lightly. Why are you here? I'm just an ordinary businessman. I will naturally go where there is business. Are you a businessman? Baili Hongzhuang looked at Mo Yunjue. No matter how she looked at him, he did not resemble a businessman. Mo Yunjue's lips hooked up into a smile. Not all businessmen looks like businessmen. I'm glad I don't stink of gold and copper that most of them smell of. However, his business is quite different from ordinary businessmen's. Baili Hongzhuang looked deeply at Mo Yunjue. With his behavior and appearance, it did not seem as if he was telling a lie. In fact, she also saw that he wasn't lying, and there was simply no need to deceive her. You don't look like a businessman, but doing business is also good. Baili Hongzhuang thought about how he had been so injured back at the Luoyang Mountains. He was able to escape from the swallowing cloud herd, so the strength of Mo Yunjue had to be very strong. His business should not be simple. Baili girl, you saved my life last time, and I am very grateful. If you have the time, I would like to ask you out to have a meal with me. Mo Yunjue's voice was gentle, and his eyes were like two black holes, without anything but darkness. It was impossible to see his emotions. This time you saved me. It should be me who owe you a favor. She had never liked to take advantage of others. If it wasn't for Mo Yunjue who had appeared, then her situation would have been very bad. Mo Yunjue just waved his hand. If you hadn't saved me last time, then would not have appeared this time. So I still owe you for your kindness. Baili Hongzhuang frowned. This Mo Yunjue was good at turning things around and making her unable to refute. Okay, she said helplessly. I will have a meal with you if I get to see you in the future. They have just met each other that one time. It was amazing they met a second time. The chance to meet again is even smaller. We will meet again, Mo Yunjue said. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a doubtful glance. She did not understand how Mo Yunjue could be so confident. However, there was no conflict between herself and Mo Yunjue. On the contrary, they had both helped one another and should be considered friends. Then I'll see you later. Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand at him before turning around and walking back to the inn. It was late, and she was not sure about how many people Han Xiling had sent to deal with her. It would save her some trouble to hurry back as soon as possible. Mo Yunjue looked at the back of Baili Hongzhuang, and the lips curled into a faint smile, but the eyes were flashing with a bit of danger. The next moment his eyes fell on the three bodies that were laying on the ground, and his eyes were like a black hole flashing with a cold light as the bodies were collected by him. There was nothing left apart from a bit of blood on the ground. When Baili Hongzhuang had returned to the room, she could not help but think a bit. Master, I feel that this Mo Yunjue is not simple, Little Black slowly said. Baishi looks like this. Not many people would be able to distinguish the identity of Baishi, but he recognized it with a single glance. It is obvious he knows a lot of things. Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I also have a feeling of being unable to see through this Mo Yunjue. She was quite sure that he was deeply hidden, but she felt that it was not a good idea to judge him. Some people hide deeply. Baili Hongzhuang thought about it for some time, but then she shrugged her shoulders. Everyone had their own story. Why should she try to pry deeper? It was the same with her. Everyone was curious as to how she had changed from being a waste to how she was now. Wasn't she still hiding her identity? Listening to what Baili Hongzhuang said, Little Black and Little White nodded. There was a certain truth in what their owner had said. However, that Han Xiling is really disgusting. Little Black's face was full of anger. The woman was pretending to be an elegant and refined woman, but in the dark she had sent assassins to kill their master. This kind of woman, she should just stop pretending next time. It is simply disgusting, Little White said. Baishi was sitting on the side as he nodded his head. He also found the woman abhorrent. The back eyes of Baili Hongzhuang flashed with coldness. She did not have a last bit of good impression of Han Xiling. There were two kinds of arrogant women in the world. The first one had true pride and arrogance. This kind of person would never use underhanded methods to deal with their opponents, because this kind of person wanted to defeat their opponent in an honest manner, otherwise they would feel it shameful. The other one is fake and proud and unscrupulous. She used a proud image to face the world. She was like a white swan on the outside, but her heart was dirty. Everything was just an unspeakable disguise. Obviously, Han Xiling belonged to the second type. I will definitely give her back in the future for everything she has done to me. The voice of Baili Hongzhuang was filled with unspeakable coldness. She would never let go of an enemy. Since Han Xiling had already attacked her, she would not be polite towards her. Only, right now Han Xiling's status was higher than hers. Han Xiling could attack her, but she couldn't attack back. However, she believed that this situation would soon change. The members of the sect had always been great figures, not to mention that Han Xiling was also the granddaughter of the Grand Elder of Tiangang's sect. From the moment she was born, she was used to being superior, and it had grown to how she was today with the help of numerous cultivation resources. However, Baili Hongzhuang's opinion was that some cultivators who came from simple backgrounds could be much more difficult to handle, because they had a determined mind and a driving force in their progress. They had no way to retreat. This is also why many of the strongest people on the Shangxian continent were from humble backgrounds. Such cultivators were usually the most horrible and most determined. When she used to be the family leader of the Baili family, she had seen many of these cultivators. Now that she had changed her identity, she did not feel that she was wrong. As long as you were strong enough, then background had no meaning at all. Little Black, Little White, and Baishi had already understood everything after seeing the gaze of Baili Hongzhuang. They did not need to say anything. They knew that their owner was destined to be enemies with Han Xiling. When they are reunited with Deep Baichen again, they would tell him directly that the one he considered a good sister actually was such an ugly woman. Baili Hongzhuang quickly calmed down and took out the parchment roll she had gotten to the marketplace earlier. Looking at the black parchment scroll in front of her, Baili Hongzhuang's eyes were bright. She could feel that there was a faint force of energy emitted from it, and she was curious. But even so, she knew that it was not certain that it was a treasure. Baili Hongzhuang gently opened the scroll, only to find that the only thing on it was a landscape painting. "Master, is this just a painting of a landscape?" The little paw of Baishi was placed upon the scroll as he looked at the painting. Baili Hongzhuang looked at the scroll carefully, but the scroll did not seem to contain anything else than a landscape painting that was drawn upon it. Baili Hongzhuang smiled slightly. She was a little doubtful. Logically speaking, this should not only be a landscape painting. If it was just a normal landscape painting, why can I feel a bit of mental power fluctuating on it? Baili Hongzhuang said, puzzled as she looked at the landscape painting. Yet at that moment, the fluctuation she had felt earlier disappeared. "Master, I heard that some people might add a bit of soul power to useless things, so that the buyer think that it is a treasure and buys it at a high price. It was said that a businessman would never suffer a loss." But Little White shook his head. That is not the case here. If he was doing it deliberately, then he would definitely not let her take it away like that. I too could feel the mental fluctuation of this parchment scroll. Little White's expression was doubtful. What would be the reason? Baili Hongzhuang gazed at the parchment roll. She felt that it was not as simple as being a landscape painting. What's more, this scroll was only as big as a palm. Who would paint on such a small canvas? Her hands gently touched the material of the parchment scroll, and Baili Hongzhuang found that it was very different from normal scrolls. Is there really no problem with this parchment scroll? In the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang, a bit of doubt flashed. When she followed the family elders, they would tell her that some people would seal a real treasure using some methods. As a result, many would miss the treasure. Only those who knows about it could unlock it. Her fingertips kept gently rubbing the parchment roll while considering what to do, what was feasible. Suddenly, there was a firm light in the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang. It didn't matter. She should give it a try. Next, Baili Hongzhuang reached out for a candle. Seeing her actions, all three beasts showed a bit of confusion. They quickly asked, "Master, what are you doing? Since I don't know if this parchment scroll is useful, it's better to try some different methods. If it is successful, it'll obviously be the best, but if it isn't, that's fine too. If it isn't, it would have been useless in my hands anyway." Baili Hongzhuang was indifferent. She knew that the method of burning it with fire was somewhat risky, but how would she know if it worked without trying it? If it failed, then it would not matter. Hearing it, the three beasts thought for a moment before they nodded their heads. What their owner said made a lot of sense. They had no reason to object. Baili Hongzhuang placed the parchment scroll on top of the candle, allowing for the heat to penetrate through the material. The parchment scroll twisted at this temperature for a moment, but Baili Hongzhuang saw that there were 3 layers to this parchment scroll. The front and the back were ordinary parchment scrolls, and the landscape painting which had been drawn so beautifully had now become nothing. In the middle of the 2 layers, a small thin piece of paper appeared. Success! Little Black couldn't help but be excited. This was truly the feeling of finding a treasure. Baili Hongzhuang's lips also turned into a bright smile. It seemed that her judgment was correct. When she had rubbed the parchment scroll, she had felt that the material was slightly thicker than normal, but there was really not much of a difference. She did not think that there was something wrapped within the 2 layers of parchment paper. It seemed that whomever had made this parchment scroll had spent a whole lot of thought on it. It was very difficult to make the parchment scroll this thin and perfectly blend the 2 pages together. Since even she had been unable to tell anything was amiss, Baili Hongzhuang knew that this was not an easy thing to achieve. After burning the parchment scroll, Baili Hongzhuang took the piece of paper that had been in the middle and placed it on the table. After the burnt paper slowly disappeared, Baili Hongzhuang saw the content of the paper. This is a map? After seeing the content that was drawn on the paper, Baili Hongzhuang could not help but be stunned. Master, this should be a map. Little Black agreed with a nod of his head. However, this is not the entire map. Baili Hongzhuang carefully looked at the mountains and rivers that were drawn on the paper, and she also saw a red route that was drawn onto the map. It was just that there was a starting point, but there was no end point to it. Looking at the mountains and rivers at the edge, Baili Hongzhuang could also be certain that this was not a complete map. This should only be a part of the map. As for the other parts, I am afraid I don't know where they are. When Baili Hongzhuang's words fell, the expressions of the 3 beasts turned somewhat disappointed. I thought it would be a treasure map, but where are the other parts? Little Black snorted. Even if it is a treasure map, finding the other parts will be very difficult. It went to show that just this piece of paper was so well hidden. It was really not simple. How well would the other parts be hidden? However, it was a true accident that they had been able to find this map. The Shangxian continent was so big, and they really didn't know where to go to find the other parts. They didn't even know if they would see the second part of this map in their lifetime. Baili Hongzhuang gently petted Little Black's head. This little one was correct. Anyway, it's not a bad thing to have it in my hands. In the future, if we were able to find the rest, then that'd naturally be the best. But even if we don't, then that's just how it is. Baili Hongzhuang was very calm about this. This kind of thing could not be controlled by humans. It all depended on luck. At least it proved that her previous judgment was correct. There was really something within the parchment scroll. Early the next morning, Baili Hongzhuang gathered with the others outside the inn. The rest they had was enough to make them feel refreshed. Now it was time to continue. Baili Hongzhuang returned the inn to the shopkeeper, but he returned the purple gold coins to Baili Hongzhuang. Seeing the situation, Baili Hongzhuang was surprised and puzzled. What are you doing? The shopkeeper smiled. Girl, you gave me far too much money to buy this inn for me. It is enough to buy quite a few inns. How could I accept your money? Baili Hongzhuang smiled and waved. Since I said so, naturally I meant it. You should accept it. Girl, I know you were forced to do this yesterday. I also want to thank you for helping me out. The money, however, I can't afford to accept. The attitude of the shopkeeper was very firm. He had been doing business for many years and had never cheated a customer. He couldn't take advantage of this girl. If you refuse to accept the money, then I can only choose to give up my inn. But the inn is very important to me. Everyone saw that the shopkeeper was so stubborn, and they could not help but be surprised. Everyone wanted a profit, but the shopkeeper was doing the exact opposite. Suddenly, they all had a very good impression of the shopkeeper. Such people were very rare nowadays. Hongzhuang, since the shopkeeper said so, then accept the money, Zhiqing persuaded her. Hearing this, Baili Hongzhuang looked deeply at the shopkeeper and said, "Well, thank you then." The shopkeeper waved his hand again and again. "This is how it should be. Be safe on your journey." Baili Hongzhuang and the others got ready to start traveling again and planned on leaving Languang town. When the shopkeeper returned to the counter, he was surprised to see that there was a purple gold coin on the counter. When he saw this, the shopkeeper could not help but laugh. His heart was a little more grateful towards Baili Hongzhuang. So talented, she will become something big in the future. Soon after Baili Hongzhuang and the others had appeared, the cultivators of Beihai College also showed up. When enemies meet, it is natural for jealousy to appear. If eyes could kill, then Baili Hongzhuang would have died several times over. Yesterday, Jingqi ate a loss twice in the hand of Baili Hongzhuang, and she was very unhappy. She did not think that the mentor would scold them for this matter, but it really made her feel suffocated. If she could, she would have killed both Zhiqing and Baili Hongzhuang, but she did not have enough confidence in her strength, so she had no other option than to endure. Jinglin and the others were also cold after seeing Baili Hongzhuang and her friends, not at all concealing the hatred in their eyes. However, the mentors had already told them not to start any fights. If they truly wanted to fight, then they had to wait until they arrived at Lingyin College. They had no other option than to listen to their mentor. However, their hearts were hurting, and they couldn't wait to let this bad breath out. Zhiqing noticed that although Jingqi had seen her, she did nothing. It was a bit strange, but she could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Baili Hongzhuang and the others looked at the members from Beihai College with indifference before they turned back towards the road leading to Lingyin College. In fact, from beginning to end, it was always the students of Beihai College that were looking for trouble. Baili Hongzhuang and the others were not the kind of people to stir up a conflict. After Baili Hongzhuang and the others left, the practitioners from Beihai College picked another road. If they stayed on the road that Baili Hongzhuang and those had picked, then they would meet all the time, and they would be unable to hold back. The cultivators from Beihai College took another road from us. That's strange. Zhiqing said in a loud voice. That's not their style. Dongfang Yu's eyes were also slightly surprised when he answered. They took another route today, and their mood was quite different. I think they were reprimanded by their mentor. Although they could not see the mentors, they knew they were close by. Everything that happened yesterday was likely to be known to the Beihai College mentors. The confrontation between the students was already so volatile, but the confrontation between the mentors would be even more intense. Zhiqing smiled brightly. You're most likely right. It has to be like this. Even if they had lost twice, with the character of Jingqi, it was impossible to back down like this. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into a slight smile. Sooner or later we'll meet again. Let's go. After 2 weeks, Baili Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at the imperial capital of the Qing Dynasty. The Qing Dynasty was a large country, and the broad streets with the magnificent buildings proved their long history. Walking on the streets, the traffic was busy and the pedestrians were moving in a constant stream. The bustle was unlike any they had seen before. All kinds of things they had never seen before appeared here, even for Baili Hongzhuang. So there was naturally some surprise and interest in her eyes. Wow, the imperial capital of the Qing Dynasty is so prosperous. Zhiqing's eyes sparkled with excitement, and her head was constantly turning as she tried to see everything at once. It was simply too spectacular. Lingyin College is located in the imperial capital of Qing Dynasty. Zhang Yinfeng was astounded. Lingyin College was located at such a bustling place. It was far different from what she had expected. Although the city was lively, it was almost too lively. A college was for students to practice. Such a prosperous place could confuse students. Lingyin College was originally located at Lingyin City, which is at the border to the Qing Dynasty. It was only after the sponsoring of the royal family that they moved to the imperial capital. Today, the princes and princess of the Qing Dynasty is studying at the Lingyin College, and it has become the Royal College. Gong Xiaoqing said slowly. As they listened, they all understood. They had not expected the relationship between Lingyin College and the Qing Dynasty to be so close. No wonder that Lingyin College won twice in the college tournament. With the financial support of the Qing Dynasty, they have many more resources than others. Cui Haoyan could not help but say. Gong Xiaoqing waved his hand. They lost the original purpose from setting up a college. They serve the royal family now, and there's a lot of restrictions on the students. I heard that amongst the Lingyin Academy students are many royals and nobles, and the requirement for these to enter is extremely low, while all the ones from poor upbringing has the harshest conditions to join. This is also why so many are going to Qiankun College now. Even if the resources are a bit lacking compared to Lingyin College, they will not have to be ridiculed by others, nor will they have the same restrictions. Dongfang Yu spread his hands as he said. When Lingyin College became servant of the Qing Dynasty, this situation was to be expected. Everyone is entitled to think as they wish, but for the principal of the Lingyin College to force us to follow them like this, it is going too far. Baili Hongzhuang was calm. She never felt that there was any right or wrong. It is just that you cannot force your thoughts onto others. Everyone nodded. This was also what was making them immensely annoyed. While everyone were discussing, Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao had appeared in front of everyone. The vice principal went to see a friend here in the Qing Dynasty. We will take you to the Lingyin College first. Lu Huayan smiled and said. These students had never shamed them. Instead, they were their pride. There was also a smile on everyone else's face. They were very curious about the Lingyin College. Under the leadership of Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao, they slowly moved towards Lingyin College. On both sides of the street, many had their eyes turned towards Baili Hongzhuang and the others. It was, after all, very eye-catching to see such a group of young and talented cultivators. I heard that the three-college tournament is about to begin. This group of young experts must be cultivators from one of the other two colleges. Should be. I have seen many of Lingyin College's students, but these people I have never seen before. I don't know where they are from, but these students are really beautiful. Even so, Lingyin College is always the strongest. Lingyin College has already won 2 consecutive tournaments. If they win again, that is 3 victories in a row. The people were laughing as they chatted. They had always had good feelings towards Lingyin College. I can see that Lingyin College has a good reputation in Qing Dynasty. Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. Lingyin College has produced many outstanding geniuses. The Qing Dynasty is also highly respected, so naturally the reputation is very good, Lu Huayan explained. However, this is also good. Lingyin College is now more and more eye-catching, and you have the chance to grasp an opportunity and turn it all around. Along with the words of Lu Huayan, the people looked at each other and seemed to understand that this was truly a feast of Hongmen. They could easily imagine that now they had arrived at the Lingyin College, they would become the subject of provocation and ridicule. The royal family had already been unrelenting, not to mention their college had already lost twice in a row. Almost no one were optimistic about their college this time. Under the leadership of Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao, Baili Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at Lingyin College. The white gate was big and magnificent. The gold-plated 4 characters shimmered in the sunlight. From this alone, one could see the strong financial backing that the college had. This Lingyin College is really different. After being sponsored by the Qing Dynasty, even the door is made so special, much more refined. Cui Haoyan smiled and said with emotion. By just looking at the gate, he could guess that everything within Lingyin College had been made with a mountain of money. In contrast, Qiankun College was indeed much simpler. Everyone had different feelings as they observed Lingyin College. However, just as they were about to enter the gate, a small guard stepped forward. Who are you? Only students of this college is allowed to enter. We are from Kangling College and has come to participate in the college tournament, Fu Hongbo explained. When the words fell, Fu Hongbo was ready to enter the college, but the guard was still blocking the entrance with his body. How do I know if you are from Kangling College? The guard looked at them with ridicule and sneered. Fu Hongbo frowned slightly. So how do we prove it? Take out your identity token, the guard said. We will not let every cat and dog enter our Lingyin College just because they want. They have to see if they are worthy. Hearing the words of the guard, the expressions of everyone's faces turned ugly. The guard was clearly saying that they were not worth enough to enter Lingyin College. Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan looked at one another, and although they saw the anger in the other's eyes, they did not flare up. Identity token? What kind of identity token? Lu Huayan's eyes flashed with doubt. Before, no one had said anything about needing identity tokens to enter the college. Last time they came to the college, there was not anything like this either. Did the Lingyin College change these past 3 years? Proof that can determine that you are from Kangling College. The guard smirked as he had no intention of giving Lu Huayan an answer. Then inform your principal. He knows us and will be able to prove our identity. Fu Hongbo endured the anger as he said. The guard wanted to mock them further and looked at Fu Hongbo. Just by you. What makes you think you have the right to see our principal? He is always very busy. If everyone asked to see him, he would have no time for anything else. Get out if you can't find a proof of identity. Don't stand here and block the door. It will damage the reputation of the Lingyin College. Seeing his mocking expression, he successfully ignited Dongfang Yu and the other's anger. Even a guard is so arrogant. It is simply unbearable. Fu Hongbo also felt anger and wanted to end it right away. However, just as Fu Hongbo was about to actually do something, a mocking voice was heard behind them. Hey, someone was actually stopped outside the college. Baili Hongzhuang and the others turned around only to see Xiling and the others led by 2 mentors. The person who spoke was wearing a black robe and was a mentor of Beihai College, Duan Yingwu. Fu Hongbo's eyes were gloomy. Duan Yingwu had always been narrow-minded, so the ridicule was within his expectation. When they saw that Baili Hongzhuang and the others had been stopped, the expressions on Xiling and the others turned smug. The previous suffocation, now they could return it, since they had arrived at Lingyin College. Duan Yingwu smiled and looked at Fu Hongbo, but he did not care too much and led the students behind him inside. However, the guards who had been stopping them before allowed the Beihai students' entry. He even had a smile on his face as he looked at Duan Yingwu and Mo Xinghai. Mentor Duan, Mentor Mo, you have arrived. Duan Yingwu smiled provocatively at Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan as he said, the location for our Beihai students should have been prepared right. Of course it has, the guard nodded his head. Please enter. Seeing this, Zhiqing could not help but ask, why can they be allowed inside without a proof of identity? Duan Yingwu and the others stopped because of her words and gave Fu Hongbo a sly look. It was rare to see such a joke. Naturally, they had to enjoy it. Can your identity be compared to ours? Lu Jingqi asked with a smug smile. Our mentors are famous. Who knows about some country bumpkins who came from God knows where? When they heard these words, the lips of Xiling raised. They had eaten a loss at Baili Hongzhuang's hands now. They must let her feel their superiority. This kind of people, we don't know where they come from. Guard, you have to check it. Lu Jinglin almost screamed as she looked at Baili Hongzhuang with eyes filled with resentment. This Baili Hongzhuang was treated specially by Xiaolan Mei. This was hurting her greatly. And because of the injury Baili Hongzhuang had given her, she had suffered a lot of pain. The 2 mentors were harsh, and although she was injured, they would not slow down, causing her to be in severe pain. This was all Baili Hongzhuang's fault. Now, under the introduction of the mentors, they have a slight understanding of Baili Hongzhuang and the others, and know her name is Baili Hongzhuang. Feeling the resentful gaze of Lu Jinglin, Baili Hongzhuang is calm, and the resentment has no influence on her. The guard nodded his head and said, I will check their identity. Mo Xinghai smiled. Everyone must be tired after moving so long. Let us go to see the accommodation prepared by Lingyin College and take a rest. Yes, Xiling and the others opened their mouth and laughed excitedly. They thought that the people of Qiankun College were mad over being stopped outside the gate. As the cultivators of Beihai College disappeared from the vision of Baili, Hongzhuang and the others, everyone's eyes fell on the guard again. Minter, why bother with him? Let's just go inside. Cui Haoyan could not help but say. This kind of annoying person who was deliberately making a fool of them and refusing to say anything straight. In fact, they can feel that this is the attitude of Lingyin College. How can a guard make such trouble on his own? Cui Haoyan is right. We can just enter. The guard can't stop us. Junyu agreed. They were here to represent the Qiankun College, but were stopped by a mere guard. This was an embarrassing matter. Listening to the words, the expression on the guard's face changed slightly, but he soon said, "You want to force your way into the Lingyin College? Do you think I want dare get the royal guard to drive you away?" Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbao looked at one another, not sure about what to do. This reflected exactly what they had expected. If they forced their way in, they would get a bad reputation, but staying here would be humiliating. Once the royal guard appeared, they would be arrested. Then this could be a big trouble. Even if they knew that this was the idea of the Lingyin College, they were at a loss for what to do. At this point in time, Baili Hongzhuang spoke up. "Are you sure you want us to be locked outside?" The guard looked at her and said, "Of course, you can't prove your identity. How can I let you inside?" Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbao also looked at Baili Hongzhuang with doubt. Right now, they had no solution. Maybe she could fix it? "We were invited by Lingyin College to participate in the tournament. You dare to stop us from entering. Are you sure you can afford to do this?" The momentum of Baili Hongzhuang was unstoppable. Even if Lingyin College were going against them, this was too much. If they did not show their attitude, then they would simply be despised. Previously, someone told him it was best to make things difficult for the Qiankun students and make them lose face. However, when the woman said this, he did not know how to answer. After a moment of hesitation, the guard said, "As a guard, I will stop anyone unknown. What responsibility do I have to take?" After speaking, the guard showed a smugness in his eyes. He would not be scared. If this student of Qiankun College wanted to be too much, he would make her forced to submit. Just as the guy wanted to see Baili Hongzhuang turn pale, he saw her sneer. "Since Lingyin College does not welcome us, we are leaving." Baili Hongzhuang looked at Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbao when she said this. Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbao also nodded their heads. They could not continue this deadlock. It was better to just leave. As for the follow-up, they would find a way to handle it later. When the guard saw that the Qiankun College's people were about to leave, the expression on his face finally flashed with some color. He was only ordered to cause some problems for the students. If they really left, he would not be able to handle the aftermath. Zhiqing and the others did not hesitate and left together with the two mentors. The attitude of Lingyin College was simply too disgusting. "Wait!" Seeing Baili Hongzhuang and the others get ready to leave, the guard could not help but call out. Baili Hongzhuang stopped her steps and looked at the guard, sarcasm heavy in her eyes. "What now? We're not even at the door of Lingyin College. If something is broken, don't come at us for it." Hearing the sarcasm in her voice, the guard's face turned red. His expression was ugly before he raised his chin in arrogance once more. "Wait a moment. If anyone can prove your identity, I will let you in." When he spoke, everyone were silent. It seemed that he still wanted them to show gratitude to him. "No need." Baili Hongzhuang lifted her hand slightly. "We can see the hospitality of the Lingyin College clearly." Baili Hongzhuang glanced at Zhiqing and the others and said, "Let us leave this place. They are too arrogant." Next, Baili Hongzhuang and the others walked away with steady steps. This kind of place, if they continued to stay, they'd just be ridiculed. Why would they do that? "Hey, you guys," the guard looked at the back of Baili Hongzhuang and her group, and his face became ugly. He did not expect that the situation would become like this. As a matter of fact, these people from Qiankun College should not try to leave. How come a situation was like this? Thinking about it, The guard rushed into the college with an anxious expression on his face. He had to tell the higher-ups. Soon after the people from Beihai College had entered Lingyin College, the two mentors of Lingyin College came to greet them. Mentor Duan, Mentor Mo, we haven't seen you for a long time. One of the instructors of the school, Ruan Yulong, had a happy smile on his face. Seeing Ruan Yuong, Duan Yingwu, and Mo Xinghai's facts also reveal a smile. Hello, Mentor Ruan. We haven't seen you for a while. It seems your strength has increased. Ruan Yulong smiled lightly and seemed modest, though he said with heartfelt pride, a bit stronger. You have arrived. I don't know when the students from Kangling College will arrive. The mentor next to Ruan Yulong asked. Hearing this, Duan Yingwu and Mo Xinghai could not help but laugh. They are being blocked at the door. The guard wanted them to prove their identity. I am afraid they won't be able to enter for a while. Duan Yingwu chuckled. The good drama has already begun. Ruan Yulong chuckled. I would have liked to see this good show for myself. Mo Xinghai nodded his head. It was indeed a good show. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongbao had faces as gloomy as water, but they had not attacked. There is nothing in their Kangling College. They can't turn it around, even if they got some luck in the ruins. Yu Yulong's face was filled with disdain. This kind of collage has no right to enter. The mentors did a good job. They should be unable to verify their identity. The four mentors smiled at each other. There was some ridicule in the smiles. Today is really fun. Isn't that Baili Hongzhuang so good normally? Isn't it just being humiliated as well? Lu Jinglin's eyes flashed with success, but her eyes were on Xiao Lanmei. She wanted to know what his attitude towards all this was. Lu Jingqi was also very excited. Today I am really too happy. They deserved it. Now let's see them getting a slap in the face. She was disgusted with Zhiqing. Now she wanted to see her being taken down a notch. I don't know how long the students will have to wait outside. Xiling also felt that he was letting go of a bad breath. Although he had no evidence, he knew they had taken his Qiankun bag. It was impossible for ordinary people to do so. Xiao Lanmei was indifferent, as if it had nothing to do with him. Lu Jinglin also let go of her impression after seeing Xiao Lanmei like this. It did not seem like H treated her that special after all. However, just as the four mentors were all very happy, the guard came rushing over. Mentor Ruan, Mentor Jiang. Seeing the guard, Ruan Yulong also felt he had done a good job and smiled. You did a good job today. It earned face for our academy. He was the first person to let them know their lowly identity when they came to the academy. Mo Xinghai and Duan Yingwu's faces were also filled with smiles. This trick is really making them happy. However, the guard who had run all the way had an anxious expression and gasped with a big breath. They. Ruan Yulong patted the guard's shoulder. What about them? Say it slowly. They left. At this moment the guard said it, and Ruan Yulong was shocked, frowning slightly. Who left? The team from Kangling College. They are gone. The guard's face was very ugly. He did not think that they would leave just like this. If they don't participate in the tournament, it would be horrible if he got blamed by the principal. Ruan Yulong's face changed. What? How is this possible? What did you do? Mentor, I asked them a proof of identity, just as you instructed me to, and instead of arguing, they just left like this. The guard looked bitter. Mentor, I did everything as you instructed me to. You have to save me. The reason he dared to be so arrogant was because he was certain the team would not leave, only look for a way to enter the college. He had never expected they would do the complete opposite. It made him dumbfounded. To become a guard of Lingyin College was a good job. He had used a lot of personal relationships and was able to finally become one. He couldn't lose this job because of this. Not only Ruan Yulong, but also Jiang Lihui's faces suddenly changed. No matter how much they looked down on the college, now that they had left, they could not handle the consequences. How could they go? Ruan Yulong was unable to believe it. Won't they participate in the college tournament? According to what he had thought, they would not leave. Duan Yingwu and Mo Xinghai were also shocked at this point. They had made the college tournament earlier for the sake of dealing with the Qianglin College. As long as the Qianglin College failed this time again, the college would never be able to lift its head in the future. Now that the team from Qianglin College had left, if they didn't participate in the college tournament, then hadn't they lost greatly this time? The most important thing was that it was all caused by Lingyin College, who blocked their entry. So even if they choose to drop out from the tournament, then it was not their fault. This could be very troublesome. Hongzhuang, we left just like this. Do we not participate in the tournament? Zhiqing could not help but ask the things that worried her. Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand. Of course we will participate in the tournament. So what do we do now? Zhiqing asked in a confused way. We just need to find an inn here in the Imperial capital. Everything was arranged by the Lingyin College, and they will definitely not be willing to see us leave like this. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into a confident smile. In her opinion, the trick used by Lingyin College is simply too stupid, rejecting them for the sake of ridiculing them. But when they left, their principal would have to come back and apologize to them. Which college would lose the most face by this? Lu Huayin and Fu Hongbao completely understood after listening to the words of Baili Hongzhuang, and their hearts were filled with admiration towards her. Baili Hongzhuang was really smart. Since they will not let us leave, they will come and ask us to come back. We will just find an inn and live in, while experiencing Qing Dynasty's imperial capital the next 2 days. Lu Huayin smiled. This method of Baili Hongzhuang, not only did it save their face and save them from humiliation, it also made the Lingyin College lose face. It was definitely the best solution. Listening to the two mentors, by Junyu and the others understood what was happening, and their faces showed a smile. Haha. After we said we were leaving, the guard's face instantly turned into the color of a pig's liver. Zhiqing smiled happily. At this moment, since she had understood all the ins and outs of the matter, she did not have the same tension as she had in the beginning. Now that she thought of the appearance of the guard, she could only feel that it was all ridiculous. The guy was annoying, and we left. He must be very unhappy now. As practitioners of Qianglin College, they have always been respected, but here they were being humiliated. Dongfanyu chuckled. Even if the guard was ordered to do this, when this is informed to the Lingyin College principal, he will not have a good time. As Dongfanyu said this, the others gave him thumbs up. This was simply the best. Baili Hongzhuang and the others randomly found an inn in the imperial capital. Even though they had traveled for a long time, they were only a little tired. Instead, they were interested in the imperial capital of the Qing Dynasty. The two mentors have already gone to meet the vice president. Why don't we go out and experience the imperial capital tonight? Cui Haoyan's face was full of smiles that resembled the spring breeze. Although the results of the college tournament was not optimistic, at least he was in a good mood. Hearing the question, the faces of the others were also showing a color of interest. When they first came to Qing Dynasty, they should enjoy themselves. Since we are already here, let's go shopping. Isn't it a waste if we don't? Dongfanyu grinned. Let's set out. After leaving the inn, everyone went to a restaurant to eat. After asking around, they knew a bit about the Qing Dynasty. The first tower had the most delicious meals. The group did not hesitate to head towards the first tower. Every region had different kinds of specialties. They had finally arrived at the Qing Dynasty, and their hearts were filled with curiosity. They naturally had to try out the most delicious food from this area. Standing in front of the door to the first tower, everyone had a bit of surprise in their eyes. On the golden nameplate, the 3 characters of the first tower was written as if the calligraphy was dragons and phoenixes dancing together. The first tower was like its name, the best restaurant in the Qing Dynasty. Baili Hongzhuang had just entered the restaurant when she saw a smiling waiter come towards her. Several guests. There's no space on the second floor. All rooms are rented out. I do not know whether or not you wish to eat in the lobby. Everyone nodded their heads. Sitting in the lobby was also a good decision, because people were usually talking well, and they could listen in on important conversations. When they arrived, they knew nothing of the Qing Dynasty. Maybe they could hear some favorable news. Under the guidance of the waiter, Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others were seated in the center of the lobby. They had to admit that the business in the first tower was extremely busy. Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others intentionally entered the most popular restaurant. Even so, they had not expected it to be this filled. Dear guests, I assume this is your first time coming to the first tower. Do you need me to recommend our signature dishes for you? The waiter was obviously very friendly, and he took the lead in introducing them after seeing the approving appearance of Baili Hongzhuang. Seeing the waiter's enthusiasm, Baili Hongzhuang and the others also let much more comfortable with this waiter. Then we will trouble you with finding some dishes for us from the first tower. We are 8 people, please decide for us. Baili Hongzhuang smiled. With pleasure, the waiter nodded. Please wait for a moment, and the wine will be delivered. After the waiter left, Zhang Yinfeng smiled and said, although I don't know much about this first tower, the waiter is very clever and friendly. Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly. In my opinion, the owner must have spent a lot of time on training the waiter. I also think that this restaurant is elegantly furnished. There is no lack of luxury, and everything you could ever want from a restaurant can be found here. Dongfang Yu sighed. However, while they were looking at the layout of the first tower, they did not know that someone on the second floor were looking at them. Second brother, do you see those 2 great beauties in the lobby? In the middle, a teenager around the age of 17 was saying with excitement as his eyes fell on Baili Hongzhuang and the others. Third brother, although the beauties of the Qing dynasty are quite a few, can they really be considered great beauties? Opposite the teenager, a man around 19, wearing a green robe, was looking at him with a bored expression. Nangong Yujin's face had an expression of excitement. Second brother, I am telling the truth. If you don't believe me, then take a look. Seeing that Nangong Yujin was so serious, Nangong Xiujie looked towards the lobby of the first tower. Just with this one look, he could no longer believe his eyes. When did 2 such beautiful women come to our imperial capital? I did not get any news about this. Nangong Xiujie's eyes sparkled with a dazzling light as he coveted the woman below. So beautiful, it was simply otherworldly. Second brother, that woman with the hibiscus-colored dress is so warm and affectionate. The tenderness is like water. It is truly the best among the best. Nangong Yujin's word revealed a strong interest. This woman was so delicate and beautiful, she was out of this realm. It was really the first time they saw a woman like this. Nangong Xiujie looked at the hibiscus-dressed woman, but then his eyes fell on the white-dressed woman. He could not help but think that she was the real beauty of the 2. Both appearance and temperament were one of a kind, especially since the smile had completely caught his heart. This kind of rare beauty, he would never let her go. That was not the style of Nangong Xiujie. I think the white-dressed woman is more moving. Nangong Xiujie rubbed his chin as he said. His eyes sparkled with excitement. He had not been this excited for a long time already. Listening to the words of Nangong Xiujie, Nangong Yun also smiled. It seemed as if his second brother understood his thoughts. In this case, isn't that great for the 2 of us? Nangong Xiujie nodded. It is indeed good. After waiting for some time, the wine they had ordered arrived. Looking at the delicious wine in front of them, everyone were eager to get their dishes. This wine is a pretty color. The color and the fragrance is both superior. I just don't know how it tastes. Let's try it. Zhiqing smiled. Everyone also tasted a bit. After tasting it, they could not help but sigh. Sure enough, this was the Fifth Tower. The taste was really amazing. This taste is really good. Junyu smiled. The wine from this big dynasty was truly special. At the same time, the conversation from all the others entered their ears. I hear that one of the 3 colleges were deliberately made fun of at the entrance of Lingyin College. Later, the team left Lingyin College directly. Did you know of this? Left? I didn't hear about this. But if they really left, can the college tournament continue? I don't understand why Lingyin College would do this. It's a bit too much. The man shook his head. Lingyin College was always very important in their minds. The status was very high, but this kind of move was simply shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know, but the college has lost twice in succession. It is normal to be ridiculed. The strength of Lingyin College is the highest. Junyu changed his mind. Originally, I wanted to see the strength of Lingyin College, but now I have no interest in them at all. He had also respected the achievements of Lingyin College over the years, and was humble to learn from them. Although Lingyin College couldn't judge right from wrong and relied on the Qing Dynasty, at least Lingyin College had some very good cultivators. However, when they showed this kind of attitude today, it proved that they had already fallen. Lingyin College has been attached to the royal family of the Qing Dynasty for quite some years now. It is normal that it is filled with high-ranked people. Gong Xiaoqing slowly said, and there was a bit of disdain in his eyes. A talented gentleman was obviously well-liked, but a person with strength but a narrow mind was simply just a villain. It was impossible for them to admire the strength of Lingyin College now. While they were eating, they listened to the laughter and talks of the people around them. All kinds of news were being discussed, but most of it was useless for them. At the same time, Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin slowly descended from the second floor. Their heads were held high, and they walked with elegance. A folding fan was held in the hands, showing that they were graceful. Hey, isn't that the second prince Nangong Xiujie and the third prince Nangong Yujin? This first-hour restaurant is really excellent. I heard that the royal family wanted to recruit their chef. They came to the first tower to recruit the chef, but why would the chef not go with them? Instead, the princes often come here to eat instead. Especially the second and third prince are regular customers. Where are the two princes going? They are heading towards the lobby? Do they know someone who is sitting in the lobby today? The eyes of everyone turned somewhat strange. If it was someone that knew the two princes, then their identities could not be normal. How could they eat in the lobby? Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin had a smug and confident smile on their faces. As princes, they were the center of attention no matter where they went. With the words of these people, things were likely to go their way now. Listening to the conversation of the other customers, Baili Hongzhuang and the others could not help but look at Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin. Not for any other reason, but because Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were both students of Lingyin College. The strength is outstanding, and they would likely be their opponents in the tournament. After a slight glance, Baili Hongzhuang and the others returned to eating their food. After all, they would not be able to really understand these people from just a glance. After all, they just wanted to be able to recognize them. As for the college tournament, it was impossible to do anything to them, as they were from Qiankun College. The president would not allow it, since they still needed the college to accept the tournament. However, when they turned around, Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin had stopped at their table. Seeing this, Baili Hongzhuang and the others looked at one another. It was quite difficult to guess what was going on. The news about their departure earlier, could it be that they already knew of their identities? However, the words that Nangong Xiujie said made them understand that it was purely them who thought that they knew their identity. Pretty girls, why not come with us to the palace to have a deep conversation? Nangong Xiujie's voice was warm, and his lips were curled into a faint smile. The expression was one of a polite young master. However, when his voice fell, his eyes fell on Baili Hongzhuang, and it was as if Gong Xiaoqing and the other men were not present at all. This made all of them understand. Nangong Xiujie was not polite. He was being arrogant. What if we don't want to? Zhiqing's voice was cold. The attitude of Nangong Xiujie was very unpleasant. Gong Xiaoqing and the other three men looked at one another. They instantly understood that they were looking for Baili Hongzhuang and Lu Qinwei. Thinking about it, Gong Xiaoqing and the others were somewhat helpless. They belonged to the special enrollment class of the Qiankun College, but these two women were the most attractive ones they had ever seen. At first, Lu Qinwei was hailed as the #1 beauty of the academy, attracting all male cultivators to pursue her. Many even joined the academy for the sake of seeing her. Since Baili Hongzhuang arrived, the situation had not become better. In fact, it had just become more intense. Because now half the cultivators were after Lu Qinwei and the other half were after Baili Hongzhuang. Even though these guys had been with Baili Hongzhuang and Lu Qinwei for a long time, they still found them pleasing to the eye. The two of them were naturally the most eye-catching, and now the two princes had obviously come for the sake of them. Nangong Xiujie heard the coldness in Zhiqing's words, and his eyes changed slightly. He had lived for many years and had found many girls throughout the years, but he had never been treated like this by a woman before. On the contrary, many women wanted to marry him. However, he wasn't interested. The smile on Nangong Xiujie's face did not change because of Zhiqing's words. Instead, he said, "I am Nangong Xiujie, the second prince of the Qing dynasty. I am very happy to have met you." At the same time, Nangong Yujin also went to the side of Qingyue. "I have seen many beautiful, peerless, and independent people in my life, both in this city but also the rest of the country, but there are no women as beautiful as you." Nangong Yujin did not hide his praise. A woman such as this one, it was really the first time he ever saw one. Qingyue was unaccustomed to such a scene. Although many admired her, no one had ever been so direct before. She was unsure of how to respond for quite a while. Looking at the flustered face of Qingyue, Nangong Yujin was even happier. This beautiful woman was so pure, just a few sentences and she was already shy. Nangong Xiujie looked at his younger brother. The eloquence of his third brother was truly magnificent. Just a few words, and he had already grasped the heart of the lady. The people in the restaurant instantly understood what was going on, and I could not help but look curiously at them. I just knew the two princes wouldn't have known someone from the lobby. It turned out that it was just a drunkard who was guessing before. I noticed that the two girls looked stunning, but with their temperament, they cannot be ordinary people. It doesn't matter who they are. Now the two princes has come out, they're going to be taken away. The people shook their heads. They felt that these women would definitely follow the princes. Who wouldn't want to marry a prince? However, although the strength of these two princes was very outstanding, they were lustful people. Almost every outstanding woman within the capital had been picked up by them. These two women were truly pitiful. "Girl, I don't know what to call you." Nangong Xiujie's eyes landed on the body of Baili Hongzhuang. Before looking from far away, he had felt that she was very outstanding. Now that he was next to her, he found her bright and moving. The exquisite and beautiful face had not the slightest imperfection, especially the temperament and style, the faint scent she carried. She was not comparable to any other woman. Baili Hongzhuang slowly stood up, although she did not care too much about the purpose of Nangong Xiujie, but the other party was still the Qing dynasty's second prince. Since they had come to the Qing dynasty, naturally they had to give him some face. "Baili Hongzhuang." Nangong Xiujie whispered her name before his lips widened slightly. What a good name. Not only is the meaning wonderful, the sound is also pleasing to the ear. "Thank you for your praise, second prince," Baili Hongzhuang smiled. However, when the smile of Baili Hongzhuang fell into the eyes of Nangong Xiujie, he became obsessed. She was already the most beautiful, but the smile made it even more so. On the other hand, Dong Fanyu and the others looked at each other. It seemed that this had nothing to do with them at all. This Qing dynasty is a big country. Although the prince's abilities are great, they are still just greedy for beautiful women. Junyu frowned. The other party's actions clearly showed that they did not put them in their eyes. The actions was truly disgusting. Gong Xiaoqing, Qingyue is obviously not good at dealing with this situation. Do you want to help her? Dong Fanyu looked at Gong Xiaoqing. He found it really unbearable. Everyone knew that Qingyue's heart was set on Gong Xiaoqing. How could he allow for these brothers to steal her away? Gong Xiaoqing's gaze was cold. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were also uninviting. However, the gaze of Gong Xiaoqing was on Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang and Qingyue were two very different women. Baili Hongzhuang was not as delicate as Qingyue. On the contrary, she was independent, strong, unique, and unafraid. He believed that she would not let them off easily. "There are many good delicacies and wines in our palace. I don't know if you would be interested." Nangong Xiujie's eyes were filled with a lusting light. If he managed to get Baili Hongzhuang in his hands, he was sure that many people would be full of envy towards him. Seeing that Nangong Xiujie did not even try to hide his intentions with his speech, the disgust in Baili Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. She really had no good feeling toward the royal family. Whether it was the surname, Xinyuan, or Nangong, all of them were disgusting. Next, Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile. Her pair of phoenix eyes were sparkling like the spring river. Nangong Xiujie's heart trembled. Such a beautiful person. Every smile was simply too fascinating. However, the words of Baili Hongzhuang was something he had not expected. "Thank you, second prince, but I have already eaten." The simple and honest words were impossible to refute. The dishes on the table were almost all eaten, and Baili Hongzhuang was likely already full. However, everyone knew it was just an excuse. How could she answer so seriously? Nangong Xiujie's heart was puzzled. Did this beauty not understand what he meant? "Baili girl, come with me back to my palace. Taking a walk in my garden after a meal is also good." Nangong Xiujie tried to ask again. "Oh." Baili Hongzhuang's eyes widened slightly. "If you ask me, young master, then I would have to disagree. I'm already married." Baili Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes slightly. She was innocent and pure. This guy directly tore faces with them. But when someone was acting like this, it was better to play tricks on them. She would like to see how he could continue to reply. When the voice of Baili Hongzhuang fell, the expression on Nangong Xiujie's face instantly became ugly to look at. How is this possible? He had never even once considered the possibility that Baili Hongzhuang was already married. However, after hearing the words of Baili Hongzhuang, he realized that it was indeed possible. Haha, Junyu could not help but laugh slightly. He had to truly hold back to not laugh out loud. Baili Hongzhuang was truly domineering, as always. Just a single sentence, and she had already managed to make Nangong Xiujie's face turn into nothingness. In the eyes of Dongfang Yu's eyes, there was also a smile. Baili Hongzhuang was simply too smart a woman. If you changed it to other women, then they would be at a loss for what to do when faced with such attention. It was exactly because of this that so many people loved her. She was so eccentric, and it was impossible to dislike her. "Baili girl, you are married?" Baili Hongzhuang nodded her head seriously. "Not only am I married, there's also a child." There were children. Nangong Xiujie's eyes widened as another bomb exploded in his mind, making him completely dumbfounded. This woman, one couldn't see any traces of having given birth at all. However, it was true that ordinary women were married around this age. Cui Haoyan couldn't help but hold his hand over his mouth. Baili Hongzhuang was simply too amazing. He was feeling pain holding back his smile. He had always thought that Nangong Xiujie was very annoying. Obviously now, he felt some sympathy towards him. Now he was completely being played by Baili Hongzhuang, as if he was a monkey. Zhiqing and Zhang Yunfeng both couldn't help but feel the corners of their lips twitch. Baili Hongzhuang was simply invincible. This solution was the best she could come up with. Little Black and Little White couldn't help but laugh out loud. The owner was really a master. The ability to trash talk was seriously stronger than anyone else. Nangong Yujin was a bit dumbfounded after seeing this scene. He did not expect the brothers' luck to be so bad. This was truly a bit funny. "Lu girl, you shouldn't have been married yet, right?" Nangong Yujin could not help but worry. His luck shouldn't be as bad as his second brother's, right? Lu Qinyue was slightly stunned, and her eyes could not help but fall on Gong Xiaoqing's body. She very seldom lied, and it was impossible to lie about being married. However, the reaction of Lu Qinyue was seen by Nangong Yujin, and he understood everything. "I want to invite Lu girl to go for a tour. I don't know what you think." However, the next moment, Gong Xiaoqing stood up and said, "Qinyue is my fiancée. She is not going with the third prince." Accompanied by Gong Xiaoqing's voice, Lu Qinyue's eyes showed strong joy. Although she knew that he was just saying this to help her, she was immensely happy that he would stand up and save her from this situation. This was enough. She was happy. The people within the restaurant were also stunned. They had never expected that the story would take such an unexpected twist from what they had imagined. The woman was so young. She was already married and even had children. No one had thought of that. The other woman had a fiancé. Nangong Yujin's eyes could not help but fall onto Gong Xiaoqing's body. You said she is your fiancé? Your fiancé? With the voice of Nangong Yujin falling, the look of everyone changed again. They did not expect that the woman's fiancé would be here. Nangong Yujin even said such a thing. That was a bit too much. The third prince has always been overbearing. It is not first time that he is robbing women. It's just that today he is going too far. In the past, even if the third prince used some means to rob women of other men, he would at least not directly grab them in front of a crowd. As such, the third prince was unable to deal with them. Everyone couldn't help but feel sorry for Gong Xiaoqing. It was a blessing for this man that he had a beautiful fiancée like this. However, they had not expected their romance to be ruined today. Third prince, Gong Xiaoqing is indeed my fiancé. Lu Qin was stressed. Nangong Yujin's smile was a bit embarrassed as he said, since it is just a fiancé, you are still yet to be married. This prince has seen you, and you're going to come with me. The voice just fell, and Dongfang Yu and all the others stood up. I did not expect this. The princes of the Qing dynasty are this unreasonable. We're also learning something new today. Hey, you dare to comment on my country and the royal family. Do you not want to live? Nangong Yujin was making an obvious threat. At this time, Nangong Xiujie's eyes landed on the body of Baili Hongzhuang. He always felt that she was not saying the truth. He was always hanging around women, and he had a certain understanding of them. No matter from what angle he looked at Baili Hongzhuang, she had not given birth to a child. Maybe, could she be simply lying to him? Baili girl, you'll also come back with me. If you really have a man and child, I will send for them later. Nangong Xiujie slowly sat, his eyes were cold. If this was really fake, wasn't he losing face? It was better to bring her back first, and then find out later. The second prince means to kidnap us women. Baili Hongzhuang was annoyed, and a bit of coldness was in her eyes. Even if she knew that Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were not good people, she did not think they were this bad. Gong Xiaoqing and the others also took out their weapons. Since there was no way to solve it with words, they could only fight it out. Letting Nangong Xiujie taking away Baili Hongzhuang, that was impossible. I have seen shameless people, but I have never seen shameless people who does not want face. Your face is really thick. Zhiqing was angry, and she had been furious for a long time. These scums should have died long ago. This was really not giving any face to Nangong Xiujie. Their expression turned immensely difficult to look at. The look of the people listening changed. Although they could see that what Zhiqing had said was rather extreme, they did feel that what she said was appropriate. When they saw that Baili Hongzhuang got ready to move, Nangong Yujin's expression changed and he sternly said, You dare to touch us? I guess you want to have the whole Imperial Guards as your opponent? A coward like you, I am afraid, has no strength at all, only able to rely on the so-called Imperial Guards to save you. Baili Hongzhuang was no longer caring about ridiculing them. They had already torn faces, so there was nothing to fear. When Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin heard this, their expressions turned gloomy. The words of Baili Hongzhuang were truly too much. Even just daring to say such a thing was unforgivable. This prince will let you know how amazing this prince is. Nangong Xiujie slapped on the wine table, and the wine table directly split into two pieces of broken wood. It was impossible to retreat even a step. It was just that Nangong Xiujie's move did not achieve the result he wanted. As if this simple track can scare us. The irony in Baili Hongzhuang's words were filled with mockery. This kind of guy who didn't know about heavens above heavens. After seeing the action, the waiter's face changed, and he quickly stepped forward. Second and third prince, you know the rule on our first tower. You cannot act like this in our restaurant. Hearing this, Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at each other before they looked at Baili Hongzhuang and said, Go out. However, Baili Hongzhuang directly sat down on a chair. I am not going out. What can you do about it? Zhiqing and the others were not caring about the two princes at all. It was already a disaster. There was no reason to hold back. Since they had offended them, they could just offend them completely. Anyway, even if they did not insult them now, they would become enemies at the college tournament. Nangong Xiujie was in a hurry, but he had never seen such an arrogant woman before. This was the first time in their entire lives. Do you know what you are doing? Nangong Xiujie's voice was full of threats. In the Qing Dynasty, if you dare to offend me, I can promise that you can't live to exit the Imperial capital. I am so scared. Baili Hongzhuang patted her chest, her face not the slightest bit scared. She was clearly ironic. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin couldn't bear it any longer. If they couldn't attack, where would the prestige of the two of them be in the future? Gong Xiaoqing and the others were somewhat worried. The royal family had always been a fearsome force, not to mention that the Qing dynasty was a big country. If Nangong Xiujie really used the power of the royal family to deal with them, then the situation would be worse. Master, you are mocking them like this. Are you not afraid of the power of the royal family? Although the Imperial Guard is weaklings, if the real royal powerhouses comes out, then it can be troublesome. The eyes of Little Black were a little worried. Although they would be able to leave safely, there were too many teammates, and bringing all of them to have a safe exit was not easy. There was no fear in the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang. Ew. It is natural that they are from the royal family, but before that they are from the Lingyin college. If they use the royal power to deal with a contradiction between colleges, no one will want to work with them in the future. Little Black and Little White realized that she was correct. As a result, this situation was actually not that bad. If you fall into my hands, I will let you suffer greatly. Nangong Xiujie was gnashing his teeth. The move of Baili Hongzhuang was simply too much. The atmosphere was tense, and everyone watching were filled with excitement. They all knew that it was impossible to do anything on the first tower without being banned. Even the princes dared not cause problems, so they were absolutely safe in this lobby. This kind of good show is not seen often, so this time's meal was definitely worth it. To each other, Baili Hongzhuang's voice was very cold. Without the layer of identity, Nangong Xiujie was nothing but trash. Seeing Baili Hongzhuang, he would not hesitate to return the attack. Nangong Xiujie was furious, but as long as they were sitting within the first tower, he was completely helpless. Noticing the helplessness of Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin, Baili Hongzhuang was also puzzled. Even the two princes dared not break the rules of the first tower. It seemed that the first tower's background was rather amazing. However, under the tense atmosphere, a voice suddenly caught the attention of everyone. Well, the sound of a baby crying sounded together with a black-robed man who came over, carrying a child. After seeing Baili Hongzhuang, his eyes lit up in happiness. Wifey, why haven't you come back yet? You need to take care of your child and your husband. Zhiqing and the others were instantly stunned. Who was this guy? They had never seen him before. Baili Hongzhuang was also stunned after seeing the black-robed figure. What kind of ghost was he? How could Imo Yunjue appear here? The most important thing was that Imo Yunjue was actually cooperating with her. Although she had not had much contact with Imo Yunjue, she knew that he was not a person who'd help others. But now he was helping her with her problems? Awesome, this is great. Little Black shook his head as it said. This Imo Yunjue was absolutely perfect. Only God knows where he managed to get a kid from. Master, this person is really difficult to see through. Little White was speechless. The situation is already a mess, but Imo Yunjue dared to enter and mess the situation up once more. The courage he had was not small. Dongfang Yu and the others looked at each other. They did not know where this black-robed man came from. They didn't know any people within this country. The other people within the restaurant were also stunned. Their eyes widened in incredulity. They had previously suspected that the words Baili Hongzhuang had said were false. They did not expect that reality proved them wrong. In this case, Nangong Xiujie wanted to take away a child's mother. This was simply too much for everyone. However, the most horrified people present was the waiter and the manager. Since when had their boss gotten child? They clearly had never heard about this. After Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin saw Mo Yunjue, their expressions also changed slightly. They had never thought that Baili Hongzhuang was Mo Yunjue's woman. This situation was getting bad. Mo Gongzi, Nangong Xiujie's face had a smile on his face and a faint gleam in his eyes. Baili girl is your wife. Mo Yunjue smiled and nodded. Looking at this situation, it seems that there is some sort of conflict between the two princes and my lady. My lady has always had a child's temper. I hope the two princes will be able to let go of the matter. When a voice fell, Mo Yunjue directly handed the child in his hands to Baili Hongzhuang, making it look so familiar for all who watched. Chapter 686. Mo Yunjue is helping them out of trouble in addition to Di Beichun. When did Baili Hongzhuang find another husband? Zhiqing's heart was filled with questions. This wasn't right. She had never even heard of the existence of this young master. When he listened to Mo Yunjue's affirmative answer, Nangong Xiujie's face was ugly to behold. It was no wonder that Baili Hongzhuang was so arrogant before. She was holding the thigh of Mo Yunjue. Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin looked at one another. It seemed that they couldn't get what they wanted today. Mo Yunjue was a special existence in their eyes, just as the first tower was a special existence within the Imperial capital. Originally, they thought that Mo Yunjue was just an ordinary businessman. When they wanted to bring the chef from the first tower into the palace to cook in their kitchens, the chef refused, and they wanted to kill the chef. They would never have thought that their father would save the chef and reprimanded them, saying that no matter what, it was best to not provoke Mo Yunjue. At the beginning, it was obvious that the emperor felt that Mo Yunjue's identity was a taboo, and they felt shocked. Their father was so strong. The other party was just a restaurant owner, but even their father feared him, showing that he was not a simple character. Neither Nangong Xiujie nor Nangong Yujin were stupid people. Since then, they had been very polite towards Mo Yunjue and never gotten into any contradictions with him. Since it is Mrs. Mo, naturally we will not mind it, Nangong Xiujie slowly said. Watching how the change in the attitude of Nangong Xiujie happened so fast, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang and the others showed confusion. This change was simply too fast. What is the identity of this Mo Gongzi? These two princes are so scared of him. The eyes of Dong Fengyu blinked with uneasiness. They wouldn't have gone from the ashes and into the fire, would they? After all, this Mo Gongzi would not help her for no reason. Gong Xiaoqing had a heavy expression on his face. When he faced the two princes, he still didn't worry so much, but the sudden appearance of Mo Yunjue was too hard to understand. I don't know. Let us wait and see. I accidentally broke a table. Let the waiter put on my tab, Nangong Xiujie said. Yujin and myself have some things we need to do, so we must take our leave. The table wasn't stable enough. The second prince just helped me find a faulty table. How could I ask the second prince to pay for it? Mo Yunjue's lips were raised in a slight smile, but there was no chance in the emotions deep within his eyes. Well then, we will meet the next time the two princes come to the first tower. I hope that you will come often, seeing that Mo Yunjue gave them a chance to step back. Their expressions also softened. That's good. Thank you, Mo Gongzi. As the voice fell, Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin were no longer willing to stay at the first tower for even a minute. Today, they had really lost face. After leaving through the entrance of the first tower, Nangong Yujin's face was gloomy. I did not expect such a thing to happen. At this moment, the feelings in his heart could only be described as extremely regrettable. Originally, he thought that today's harvest would be good. They never thought that it would not be a blessing but a loss of face. Nangong Xiujie's face was even uglier. Yujin, do you think that Baili Hongzhuang is really Mo Yunjue's wife? I don't know. Nangong Yujin shook his head. If not, why would he help her? I don't know. Nangong Xiujie was also puzzled. He was quite certain that this was the first time Baili Hongzhuang had appeared in the Imperial capital. If this was the case, then Baili Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue should not know each other. And if they did not know one another, it'd be impossible for Mo Yunjue to help her. He often came to the first tower, and although Mo Yunjue came and went like a ghost, he had still seen him several times. According to his understanding, Mo Yunjue had never been the kind of person who liked to help others. On the contrary, Mo Yunjue absolutely hated trouble. Was it really like this? Was Baili Hongzhuang truly the wife of Mo Yunjue? It seems to be the only explanation. They also seemed very matching. After Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujin left, the waiter also walked to the side of Mo Yunjue. "Boss, you!" Mo Yunjue lifted his right hand and stopped the waiter's words. "Come here and clean up." "Yes." Baili Hongzhuang returned the child to Mo Yunjue. "Is this your child?" Mo Yunjue shook his head. "I don't even have a lady. How can I have a child? I just heard your conversation and borrowed the child from someone else." When the voice of Mo Yunjue fell, Zhiqing and the others felt relieved. It seemed that the situation was not as bad as they thought. This Mo Yunjue was just trying to help out. "Hongzhuang, do you know this Mo Gongzi?" Zhiqing could not help but ask. Looking at the way the two were talking together, it was clearly not the first time they met. Baili Hongzhuang nodded her head as she smiled. "Yes, let me introduce you all. This is Mo Yunjue. I met him a few times. He is my friend." If she had been unsure last time when they met in Languang town, now she could definitely be certain that Mo Yunjue was her good friend. After all, she was not an ungrateful person, and Mo Yunjue had helped her again today. It was clear that they were friends by now. Looking back at Mo Yunjue, Baili Hongzhuang continued to introduce, "These are my classmates from the Qiankun College." Mo Yunjue nodded slightly to everyone. "It is a pleasure to meet you." Gong Xiaoqing and the others also nodded in greeting. Their impression of Mo Yunjue was quite good. At least he had helped them solve a big issue just now. "Thank you for just before," Baili Hongzhuang said, as her eyes were filled with sincere gratitude. Mo Yunjue just shook his hand and said, "I couldn't just watch. I hope you didn't mind." Baili Hongzhuang nodded. "I understand. You were just cooperating with me." When they heard Mo Yunjue say this, they had an even more favorable impression of him. It seems that this Mo Yunjue was truly a gentleman. "Mo Gongzi, are you the boss of the first tower?" Zhiqing could not forget how the waiter had referred to him as boss, and she looked at Mo Yunjue. In her eyes, the first tower was a very famous place. "Yes, I'm a businessman," he said, and he could not help but glance at Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang was also finding it a bit comical. Although Mo Yunjue had said he was a businessman before, she had not felt he looked like one. She did not expect him to run such an ordinary business as a restaurant. This was out of her expectations. Mo Gongzi is a wonderful person who is very eloquent. The first tower is completely different from any other restaurant. Mo Gongzi is truly a dragon amongst men. Cui Haoyan praised. Chapter 688, Baili Hongzhuang's ability. Cui Gongzi also has a good reputation. In the future, you should come to the first tower often, so we can all gather together. I'll naturally treat you all. Ma Yin answered in a calm manner. In the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang was a bit of doubt. She could not help but feel that the Mo Yunjue she saw today was a bit different from the one she had met at the Luoyan Mountains. At that time, Mo Yunjue had this gloomy aura around him, but now was obviously much lighter. The only thing which had not changed was the pair of black eyes that was showing a dense darkness. After a bit of conversation, Baili Hongzhuang and the others got up and left. They had been out for long enough. The two mentors and the vice president were likely to have already finished discussing the situation and might even have returned. Mo Yunjue did not say much. He just sent them out the entrance to the first tower. "Hongzhuang, I did not expect that you knew people in the Qing Dynasty." Zhiqing's eyes sparkled with excitement. Baili Hongzhuang was truly too powerful, and even they, as her friends, did not know too much about her. Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. I have only met him twice. That he helped me today was also out of my expectations. Although Dongfang Yu and the others did not speak, they were also filled with admiration. Since they had gotten to know Baili Hongzhuang, she had truly stunned them time and time again, but now they were used to it. I did not expect that Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujun turn out to be that kind of people. Although they did not do anything to us because of Mo Yunjue today, I believe they will do their best to cause problems when we enter the tournament. Zhang Yinfeng frowned. According to her judgment, Nangong Xiujie and Nangong Yujun were both people that would cause problems. She was afraid that there would be a lot of troubles in the future. Zhiqing put her hand on Zhang Yinfeng's shoulder, her face filled with a smile. Yinfeng, why do you worry so much? Even if we had not insulted them today, we were still destined to be enemies at the tournament. Thank you. Zhang Yinfeng couldn't help but laugh. That is also true, but we still have to be careful. The others nodded their heads. This college tournament was truly a feast of Hongmen. I don't know how ugly Nangong Xiujie's expression will be when he realizes that we are students of the Qianglin College, Zhiqing said with a smile. I'm sure it will be very exciting. Hongzhuang, when Nangong Xiujie finds out that you aren't Mo Yunjue's wife, will he blame Mo Yunjue? Cui Haoyan showed a hint of worry. Mo Yunjue had acted to save them, so naturally he was their friend now. They could leave the Qing Dynasty after the tournament, but the restaurant of Mo Yunjue couldn't. If this would cause problems for Mo Yunjue, they would feel uncomfortable and guilty. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes flashed strangely. It shouldn't be a problem. Since Mo Yunjue could make the two princes this afraid, then he must have some backing. She was certain that Mo Yunjue was not a simple character and that his backing was rather outstanding. Otherwise, it was impossible to cause even the emperor to be afraid. Since Mo Yunjue had helped them, he had to be certain that nothing would happen to him. After the return of Baili Hongzhuang and the others, it did not take long before Lu Huayan returned with Huan Chuyou. After seeing Baili Hongzhuang and the others, Huan Chuyou slowly said, "You did a good thing today. Qianglin College is not to be humiliated like this. This matter was wrong by Lingyin College." Even though he was usually a very kind person, at this moment, his face was showing traces of anger. The method that the Lingyin College used was simply over the top. Zhiqing and the others were also relieved. Since even the vice principal agreed with their actions, they did not have to worry about anything. We will stay in this inn and see how Lingyin College intends to resolve this matter, since they invited us to come. Naturally, it is their responsibility. The expression of Huan Chuyou revealed a trace of pride. Although the Lingyin College was strong, the Qianglin College students and mentors were not soft persimmons either. Baili Hongzhuang returned to the room. They had full faith in the vice principal's ability to handle this matter. He was not only the vice principal of the Qianglin College, he was also a four-tier alchemist. This is an identity which was enough to attract the respect of others. At the same time, inside the Lingyin College, things were starting to change. Wang Yulong's face was very ugly. He originally wanted to embarrass Qianglin College, but he did not want to be the one who was embarrassed. The vice president of Lingyin College, Lin Yinghao, also had an ugly expression on his face. This time you have gone too far. It is fine to go a little overboard, but the Qianglin College is not a vegetarian. They will not let you stomp all over them. It is clear that the team from Qianglin College has already made up their mind. Unless they come and personally invite them, then they would not return. Their college tournament was prepared especially for the Qianglin College. If they don't participate, then that will be equivalent to wasting all their hard work. The most important thing is that now Qianglin College was in charge. If the team did not participate, then Lingyin College would get a reputation of being incompetent. Wang Yulong's eyes were also serious. Obviously this time he had gone too far, and he was not sure how to solve it. Vice President, this was indeed too much, but I don't know what to do now. Huan Yulong looked at Lin Yinghao with a hopeful gleam in his eyes, hoping that he could save him and ensure that he did not lose his position in the college. You were too reckless. It is impossible to not be punished. As for how to solve this problem, I will discuss it with the principal. Lin Yinghao said faintly. With Lin Yinghao's voice falling, Huan Yulong's heart sank. He understood that Lin Yinghao was telling the truth, and he was the one who had brought this problem onto himself. But why didn't he consider the reaction of the Kanglan College? The more he thought about their decisive attitude, the more he hated them. When the college tournament began, he would never let them off easily. The next day, Baili Hongzhuang got up early. They had heard about the Wubao Pavilion in the Qing Dynasty. It was a place with treasures that all cultivators needed. Last night they had planned to go to Wubao Pavilion to look around, but the appearance of Nangong Xiujie had made them lose too much time, and they had to cancel. When Baili Hongzhuang exited the room, she saw that Zhiqing and the others were already waiting for her outside. Currently, they all thought that living in the inn was much better than living in the Lingyin College. With the attitude Lingyin College had towards them, it was clearly a matter of not being able to live well. Now that they lived outside, they were all very happy. There was no problem with coming and going as they pleased. Hongzhuang, you are finally up. Zhiqing's face was filled with a happy smile as she quickly walked next to Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. She could see that Zhiqing's mood was not affected by the college tournament, that she saw their trip to the Qing Dynasty as an outing, and she could not help but smile. She had to admit that Zhiqing's mentality was really good. Ordinary things could not affect her mood at all. Not only Baili Hongzhuang, but also Zhang Yunfeng and the others felt that Zhiqing was a hyper person, which made them all feel much better. Since everyone has arrived, let's go, Dongfeng Yu said as he looked at all of them. Wubao Pavilion was very famous in the Qing Dynasty's Imperial city. Just asking around, everyone knew the location of the pavilion. When they arrived in front of the Wubao Pavilion, their eyes could not help but widen slightly as they looked at the purple-black building. The building was delicate, and it was obvious that the architects had spent a lot of time thinking about the construction of this building. A strong sense of power came from the building, making everyone feel a sense of respect from just looking at it. Wubao Pavilion was split into 3 layers. The first layer had medication and herbs needed by the different cultivators. The second layer had weapons needed by cultivators, and the third and final layer had inscriptions. Not even mentioning the first and second layers, the third layer alone was enough to consolidate the status of Wubao Pavilion. Inscriptions had always been rare, and many practitioners had no way of getting in touch with such inscriptions. However, there were inscriptions in the Wubao Pavilion. How could cultivators not revere this place? They slowly walked into the Wubao Pavilion. As soon as they entered, they could see that the business was good. There were a lot of practitioners inside buying the medicines and herbs they needed. Medicines and herbs were easy to consume, and after they had been consumed, they would be gone. As such, the cultivators had a great demand for them. The layout of this Wubao Pavilion was very different from other shops, and it was giving a sense of comfort when one was inside. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with a fascinating gleam of praise. Wubao Pavilion was truly a famous place within the imperial capital, and the things they had here were also eye-opening. The medicines and herbs in this Wubao Pavilion are so many, and many of the things that are hard to find and exceedingly rare can be found here. It was hard for Zhiqing to hide her excitement. The prices were naturally very high, but it was often so that, even if you had the money, you couldn't buy them. The amount of items in the Wubao Pavilion was without a doubt the most she had ever seen. It was clear why they were doing so well. Bai Junyu's face lit up with a smile that radiated like sunshine. This Qing dynasty is a big country. The number of alchemists is much higher than in smaller countries. Naturally, it can't be compared. Zhiqing nodded slightly. This was also the power of a big country. It was very rich. It was truly an eye-opener. If you need anything, then go buy it, Gong Xiaoqing said slowly. The market price in Wubao Pavilion was quite fair, and one would not suffer a loss for buying their items here. For some time, everyone's eyes were on the counter, picking the medicinal herbs and pills they needed. Before coming to the Qing Dynasty, they had prepared a lot of money, so if they saw something they needed, they would be able to purchase it. Baili Hongzhuang also looked at the things that were for sale, but she had no intention of buying anything. She was an alchemist herself, after all. However, just as Zhiqing and the others were buying things, a familiar and provocative voice rang out from behind them. "Hey, see who is here." It turned out to be the ones who can't even prove their own identity. Jingqi's eyes were smug and filled with sarcasm. Yesterday, because of the mentors, she did not have the opportunity to humiliate Baili Hongzhuang and the others. Today, they wanted to see the famous Wubao Pavilion. They had never expected they would run into them here. Baili Hongzhuang and the other people slowly turn around. After seeing the group of cultivators from Beihai College, their faces changed slightly. "I forgot to look at the calendar before going out today. When going out, I actually encountered something so unsavory, it really made my mood bad." Zhiqing did not hesitate to fight back. She was not going to eat a loss. "Zhiqing, you are really poisonous." Jingqi was gloomy, but after a bit she recovered. "It's better than some people who are blocked in front of the door and can't enter." Baili Hongzhuang gave Jingqi an indifferent glance and tuned to Zhiqing. "Why do you care about what mad dogs are saying? They like to bark, but do you have to accompany them?" She is really annoyed with this group. No matter where they go, they were like a group of annoying flies. Listening to the words of Baili Hongzhuang, Zhiqing could not help but raise her thumb. Baili Hongzhuang was truly too poisonous when she spoke. "You are right. Let them bark. Why bother with them?" Zhiqing smiled and nodded before she began continuing to choose which items to buy. Jingqi and the others' faces turned immensely ugly at that moment. This Baili Hongzhuang was so good at trash-talking. They had tried to humiliate Baili Hongzhuang and the others. Now the words of Baili Hongzhuang had made them fall into such an embarrassing situation. "Baili Hongzhuang, you can't be too much." Jinglin could not help but say out loud. Baili Hongzhuang smiled mockingly. "Girl, what you said was really interesting. From the beginning to the end, you were looking for trouble. Now you're saying that I am too much? I think your logic is really quite something." Baili Hongzhuang looked at Jingqi coldly, and then she said, "If you want to continue, then let's just fight it out. If you do not wish to fight, then obediently shut your mouth. Don't continue to provoke us if you are cowards." The words of Baili Hongzhuang were very strong. This group of people were all bark, but no bite. Although they were afraid of fighting, they were constantly finding trouble. As soon as it was said, Jingqi and the others looked at each other, and their faces turned embarrassed. They could not help but look at Xiaolonmei, but they could see that he had already gone to the counter to pick his goods and was not paying attention to them. Obviously, Xiaolonmei had no interest in what they were doing, and if they truly became hands-on, Jingqi would be beaten. In their minds, the two Lu sisters could only give up their plans. Not long after, Zhiqing and the others had picked the herbs and medicines they needed and went to the second floor of the Wubao Pavilion. I heard that Wubao Pavilion's weapons are very famous. The quality of the weapons here are much better than elsewhere. Zhang Yunfeng's pretty face revealed a happy expression. For cultivators, the weapon they used was extremely important. The expressions of Zhiqing and the others also appeared interested. As their strength had gradually increased, their current weapons had become unsuitable. They needed to buy some that fit their current strength. I don't know how many weapons this Wubao Pavilion has, but I am quite sure that it should not disappoint us. Dongfang Yu smiled. The alluring peach eyes were filled with boundless charm. When they saw the dazzling weapons on the second floor, all of them had stunned expressions on their faces. So many weapons, they really had not expected this. Swords, knives, staves, polearms, whips, everything could be found here, all of which were in different quality and with different price points. "Dear Gusts, are you here to buy weapons?" A female shop assistant came to the front of their crowd. Her face was beautiful, and she held a graceful smile on her lips. "I want to buy a sword," Cui Haoyan answered. His sword had been used for a couple of years, and now there were 2 dents on it. It was no longer suitable for him to use. He had already wanted to change it earlier, but he had not been able to find something suitable. There were so many weapons in the Wubao Pavilion. He hoped to find a sword that suited him. "Please come with me." The shop assistant smiled slightly, turned her body, and lifted his left hand, indicating for Cui Haoyan to follow her. Zhang Yunfeng also went together with Cui Haoyan while the others began observing the many weapons on display. With so many treasures gathered here, it was easy to see how strong of a background the Wubao Pavilion had. If there was no strong background, then it would be impossible to create such a place like this. Zhiqing's gaze fell on a red and long whip that was laying in front of her. The long whip was extremely tough, but at the same time very beautiful. It was a treasure. "Zhiqing, this long whip is suitable for you." Zhang Yunfeng smiled. Zhiqing smiled slightly, but when her eyes fell onto the high price of the whip, she let go of it and placed it back. She was not favored in her family. She did not have much money on her, so she couldn't buy this even if she wanted it. Lu Qingyue was together with Gong Xiaoqing. Since yesterday, where Gong Xiaoqing said that he was her fiancé, Lu Qingyue had been very happy. Even if it is fake, she still feels that her relationship with Gong Xiaoqing had gotten closer. Zhang Yunfeng, Baili Hongzhuang, and Zhiqing were standing together. Looking at Lu Qingyue, who was walking behind Gong Xiaoqing like a small chick following its mother, the 3 could not help but sigh. Lu Qingyue really likes Gong Xiaoqing. Gong Xiaoqing only helped her out, but she is already this excited. Zhang Yunfeng shook her head and sighed. She had known Gong Xiaoqing for a long time, and she was very clear that he only viewed Lu Qingyue as a sister. However, Lu Qingyue never understood this. Lu Qingyue has her persistence. Maybe it will bring success in the future, Baili Hongzhuang answered gently. The feelings between other people was not something they could mess with. "That Lu girl looks good, her strength is good, and she is also an alchemist. I do not understand why Gong Xiaoqing does not like her." Zhiqing's eyes flashed with a bit of helplessness. This kind of situation was really enough to make her embarrassed. When the voice of Zhiqing fell, Zhang Yunfeng's eyes landed on her body, and a teasing smile appeared on her lips. "Zhiqing, from what I can see, Junyu is also very good toward you. I don't know what you think about him." When the words came out, Zhiqing quickly sighed. "Yunfeng, what are you talking about? Junyu and me? There is nothing going on between us." "Oh." Baili Hongzhuang also chuckled slightly and placed her hand on Zhiqing's shoulder. "Look over there, Junyu is watching you." Zhiqing could not help but look towards Junyu, and sure enough, he was looking at her as he smiled. When seeing this, Zhang Yunfeng and Baili Hongzhuang looked at one another, feeling it quite funny. As early as when the school year began, they had already realized that Junyu felt that Zhiqing was special to him, but Zhiqing seemed to have no awareness of this. "You're all talking nonsense." Zhiqing left the sentence before she ran to another place to look at weapons. Baili Hongzhuang and Zhang Yunfeng could only feel helpless. "It seems that Junyu wants to be a couple with Zhiqing, but I still think he has a way to go," Zhang Yunfeng said with a smile. "If you really like someone, who cares about spending more time getting close?" Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly and picked up the long whip that Zhiqing had put down before. Although she and Zhiqing were good sisters, she had not asked much about Zhiqing's family, but now it seemed that she was somewhat similar to her. Cui Haoyan was very happy to have found a weapon in the Wubao Pavilion. With this weapon, his strength would have improved by a bit. As for Gong Xiaoqing and the others, although they admired the weapons, they had no need for new ones, so they bought nothing. Then everyone's eyes fell on the stairs leading towards the 3rd floor. There should be inscriptions on the 3rd floor. "I have lived for so long, and heard of inscriptions many times, but I have never seen one before. Zhang Yunfeng could not help but smile. Lu Qingyue's face was also filled with different emotions. Inscriptions are very rare. This Wubao Pavilion is able to sell them. It is really amazing. Let's go up. If we can get inscription for our weapon, that'd be so amazing. Cui Haoyan just bought a new weapon, and he was very happy. If he could find an inscription that was suitable for his weapon, then his strength would be increased even further. Just as they were excited and wanted to go up, a sales assistant reminded them, "Dear guests, there are inscriptions on the 3rd floor, but you have to whisper when you go up. If you disturb the inscription masters, you will likely be driven out." Listening to the kind reminder of the sales assistant, everyone nodded seriously. Inscription masters were more rare than alchemists, and they had strange tempers. They should pay attention to their behavior. However, the hearts of everyone became even more excited. They had never even seen an inscription, much less an inscription master. It was really worth coming to the Wubao Pavilion today. When everyone reached the 3rd floor of the Wubao Pavilion, they were slightly stunned. What greeted them looked very different from what they had thought. That Lu girl looks good, her strength is good, and she is also an alchemist. I do not understand why Gong Xiaoqing does not like her. Zhiqing's eyes flashed with a bit of helplessness. This kind of situation was really enough to make her embarrassed. When the voice of Zhiqing fell, Zhang Yunfeng's eyes landed on her body, and a teasing smile appeared on her lips. "Zhiqing, from what I can see, Junyu is also very good toward you. I don't know what you think about him." When the words came out, Zhiqing quickly sighed. "Yunfeng, what are you talking about? Junyu and me? There is nothing going on between us." "Oh." Baili Hongzhuang also chuckled slightly and placed her hand on Zhiqing's shoulder. "Look over there, Junyu is watching you." Zhiqing could not help but look towards Junyu, and sure enough, he was looking at her as he smiled. When seeing this, Zhang Yunfeng and Baili Hongzhuang looked at one another, feeling it quite funny. As early as when the school year began, they had already realized that Junyu felt that Zhiqing was special to him. But Zhiqing seemed to have no awareness of this. "You're all talking nonsense." Zhiqing left the sentence before she ran to another place to look at weapons. Baili Hongzhuang and Zhang Yunfeng could only feel helpless. "It seems that Junyu wants to be a couple with Zhiqing, but I still think he has a way to go," Zhang Yunfeng said with a smile. "If you really like someone, who cares about spending more time getting close?" Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly and picked up the long whip that Zhiqing had put down before. Although she and Zhiqing were good sisters, she had not asked much about Zhiqing's family, but now it seemed that she was somewhat similar to her. Cui Haoyan was very happy to have found a weapon in the Wubao Pavilion. With this weapon, his strength would have improved by a bit. As for Gong Xiaoqing and the others, although they admired the weapons, they had no need for new ones, so they bought nothing. Then everyone's eyes fell on the stairs leading towards the 3rd floor. There should be inscriptions on the 3rd floor. I have lived for so long and heard of inscriptions many times, but I have never seen one before. Zhang Yunfeng could not help but smile. Lu Qingyue's face was also filled with different emotions. Inscriptions are very rare. This Wubao Pavilion is able to sell them. It is really amazing. Let's go up. If we can get inscription for our weapon, that'd be so amazing. Cui Haoyan just bought a new weapon, and he was very happy. If he could find an inscription that was suitable for his weapon, then his strength would be increased even further. Just as they were excited and wanted to go up, a sales assistant reminded them, "Dear guests, there are inscriptions on the 3rd floor, but you have to whisper when you go up. If you disturb the inscription masters, you will likely be driven out." Listening to the kind reminder of the sales assistant, everyone nodded seriously. Inscription masters were more rare than alchemists, and they had strange tempers. They should pay attention to their behavior. However, the hearts of everyone became even more excited. They had never even seen an inscription, much less an inscription master. It was really worth coming to the Wubao Pavilion today. When everyone reached the 3rd floor of the Wubao Pavilion, they were slightly stunned. What greeted them looked very different from what they had thought. The third floor of Wubao Pavilion was not as spectacular as the first or second floor. The inscriptions were all just placed on a small counter. If one ignored the inscriptions that were placed to be sold, it seemed more like a tea house. The layout was very elegant, and there was tea placed on various tables. At one of these tables, 3 old men with white beards were facing each other, clearly discussing a certain issue. Their faces had long since turned red. In this case, they instantly guessed that these 3 must be inscription masters, and that they were discussing inscriptions. It could be guessed that these 3 men put all their focus on inscriptions, otherwise they would not have discussed till their faces turned red. When they looked at the counters, the inscriptions for sale should have been drawn by these 3 inscription masters. However, it is clear that the inscription masters are not selling all their inscriptions here. They had just taken some inscriptions out to support the pavilion, most likely just to keep up the agreement they had with the Wubao Pavilion's owner. Otherwise, the third floor of the Wubao Pavilion would not look like this. The sales assistant behind the counter could not help but smile after seeing Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others. "Dear guests, have you arrived to buy inscriptions?" Gong, Xiujie, and the others nodded, and their eyes fell onto the inscription on the counter. There was only one. They could see one pattern, but they did not understand what it did. "What kind of inscription are you looking to buy? You can tell me, and I will introduce what we have." The sales assistant smiled. Gong, Xiujie, and the others' eyes brightened. As everyone knew, the inscription could improve their combat ability and the effectiveness of their weapons. It was an excellent aid for the cultivators. Just as everyone was thinking about what inscription they wanted, the practitioners from Beihai College also came up the stairs. They too were very interested in the inscriptions of Wubao Pavilion. They usually had no chance to buy inscriptions. At this moment, they saw that the Qiankun College's students were choosing, and they rushed over. It was impossible they would let them choose any good inscriptions. The college tournament was just around the corner. With inscriptions, they would be able to perform even better. How can they watch their opponents improve like this? "We also want to buy an inscription," Jingqi quickly said, and as she said the last sentence, she was afraid that the inscription would disappear. The sales assistant said, "Our Wubao Pavilion has a rule. We sell at most 1 inscription a day." When the voice of the sales assistant fell, everyone was surprised. They had never heard about this rule before. They started to think, with so many people present, only one could buy an inscription? So many people want to buy. Who will be allowed to buy 1 then? Gong, Xiujie asked politely. The rules for the sale ought to have a certain reason. There are 2 rules. The one who can answer this question will be able to get an inscription for free. If no one can answer the question, then the highest bidder wins. The sales assistant's face was smiling. He was naturally used to seeing this situation. "Dear guests, you all came early today, and the inscription has yet to be sold." With the voice of the waiter falling, everyone was feeling excited. They still had a chance. "What is the question?" There was a look of interest in Baili Hongzhuang's eyes. The problem of this Wubao Pavilion could not be simple, since just answering it would be able to get an inscription free of charge. Presumably the question was impossible to answer. The eyes of everyone fell onto the shop assistant. The next moment the waiter took a piece of paper and placed it onto the desk in front of them. "This is the question. When making an inscription liquid, how do you make azure spirit wood grain and tailless marble dissolve?" When everyone saw this problem, they were all dumbfounded. They knew nothing about inscriptions. Don't even mention the question. They did not even know what azure spirit wood grain and tailless marble was. This kind of problem, only an inscription master can answer. Zhiqing said and felt a little sad. She knew the problem wouldn't be simple, but this was far too difficult. Jingqi and the others faced each other. They simply knew nothing about it. This was impossible to answer. Seeing the look of these people, the sales assistant was not surprised. In fact, basically no one can answer the questions made by these inscription masters. However, the inscriptions were very precious. It was not a simple matter to take one out for free. After seeing this question, Baili Hongzhuang found it somewhat fun. The inscription masters had intentionally made it difficult for everyone. Even those with a little bit of understanding about inscriptions would be unable to answer. If she thought about it a bit, she can't help but think that the elders were doing it on purpose. From the beginning till the end, they never intended to give it out for free. It was just to make everyone understand and retreat. If there is no such rule, they were afraid people would complain about only selling one inscription a day. As for the result, the attention of people had been transferred. No one knows the answer, so let's just see who has the most money, Xiling said. Obviously, no one at the scene could answer in his opinion. The eyes of Zhiqing and the others fell on Xiuling's body. They knew he was a rich young master. However, Baili Hongzhuang suddenly said, "Who said that no one can answer this question?" When the words came out, everyone looked at Baili Hongzhuang with a puzzled expression. "Baili Hongzhuang, you should not be stubborn. You'll just end up as a joke." Jingqi sneered. An inscription master was not someone easy to come into contact with, and it was impossible for Baili Hongzhuang to know about inscriptions. Xiaolame looked at Baili Hongzhuang in a strange way. This kind of moment was not ideal to show off in. In fact, only an inscription master could answer this kind of question. Zhiqing and the others were also puzzled. They only know that Baili Hongzhuang is an alchemist. They never knew she had an understanding about inscriptions. Take the azure spiritwood grain and the tailless marble and grind them, then mix them with the juice of a green jade vine tree. Cook it with fire, then it will immediately dissolve, Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. Jingqi and the others saw that Baili Hongzhuang was completely self-confident, and they became doubtful. What was the green jade vine tree juice? They had never heard about it before. Qing's heat was also filled with doubt. She knew about medicinal herbs, but she knew nothing about metal, ores, or the like. When Bai Jingtian and the others listened to Baili Hongzhuang, their eyes suddenly shone brightly. The answer she had given was exactly what they had been discussing. This girl seemed to have some knowledge about inscriptions, and the answer she gave was so simple. The problem had plagued them for 3 days, and yet they had not found a solution yet. As for experiments, they had done many before, and when they were younger, an explosion would have been no problem. It's just that they are older now. If it really exploded, they'd lose their lives. Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang was ready to leave, Bai Jingtian quickly asked, "Little girl, what would you add?" Baili Hongzhuang turned to face Bai Jingtian and the others. Her lips curled into a smile. "Star powder." "Star powder?" Bai Jingtian and the others looked at each other with a moment of enlightenment. Star powder is very soft, and together with the condensate liquid, it can neutralize the violent nature of the fiery ardent stone alongside the coolness of the black crown gold ore. Jianma said, "Oh, I never thought about it." Bai Jingtian slapped his head. He had thought of many solutions, but he did not think about star powder before. Qing nodded. "Just this star powder is also a problem. A small amount is not enough, but if we use too much, it will also be useless." All three were surprised. They had never before seen a young person like Baili Hongzhuang before. What's more, this girl was only a teenager. How could she understand it so well? It was hard to encounter such a good seedling. How could they allow her to leave now? Bai Jingtian couldn't help but say, "Little girl, quickly come back and tell us." He had thought about this question for a long time and could find no solution. Now it was amazing that a little girl knew the answer when she heard them talk. However, Baili Hongzhuang was not going to follow the script. "Dear predecessors, you have already told this young one to leave. It so happens that I have some things I need to finish, so I'll take my leave." Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang was ready to leave, Bai Jingtian and the other people were so anxious that they quickly got up and went to her side. Bai Jingtian looked at Baili Hongzhuang. His face was gently and held a smile. Little girl isn't happy with how things were before. This young one wouldn't dare to be unhappy, Baili Hongzhuang said faintly. This old man apologizes to you for before. Come and discuss with us. How much star powder should we use? Bai Jingtian smiled and did not feel any shame from apologizing to a junior. As soon as she saw Bai Jingtian, Baili Hongzhuang could not help but think of the old guys in her previous Baili family. They were clearly the same kind of adorable old men. Not waiting for an answer from Baili Hongzhuang, Bai Jingtian and Jianma had already pulled Baili Hongzhuang into one of the chairs. Lu Jingqi squinted at the scene in front of her eyes. The situation changed too fast, and she was too stunned. What kind of joke was this? Did Baili Hongzhuang really understand inscriptions? Not only that, she even solved a problem that these three masters were plagued by. How could this be? However, all of this was true. Not only Lu Jingqi, the people at the counter also noticed this scene. They all saw that the three inscription masters were angry, but suddenly they all changed their attitude and even apologized to Baili Hongzhuang. So astonishing. What did Baili Hongzhuang do? My God, are those three inscription masters? They even apologized to Hongzhuang. She's simply a little freak. Zhang Yunfeng could not help but feel that when Baili Hongzhuang acted, it was simply earth-shattering. Her little heart could not handle this much excitement. Dongfang Yu's eyes were also filled with appreciation. Baili Hongzhuang was too outstanding and always dazzling. When did Hongzhuang learn about so much about inscriptions? She even knows so much about them. Hongzhuang is my idol. Zhiqing's eyes were filled with reverence. In her heart, Baili Hongzhuang was omnipotent. Even inscriptions, such a difficult thing, she knew about. She had doubts about how it was possible for Baili Hongzhuang to know so many things. Baili Hongzhuang was only 16 years old. She was strong, proficient in alchemy, and now it seemed that she was also knowledgeable about inscriptions. Even if she had used all her time since she was born, it would be hard to be this accomplished, but it had really happened in front of her. Lu Qinyue's face was also filled with shock. From the time she was born, she had always been called a genius by everyone. Not only was her strength superior to most, but she also had excellent talent for alchemy. However, only she knew how difficult it was for her to learn how to refine pills, and she never felt that she had enough time. If it was not accompanied by a strong determination, she'd never have succeeded. However, Baili Hongzhuang not only had cultivation and alchemy, she also had time to understand inscription. Was she even human? The most important thing was that she was able to answer the question of the three inscription masters. It could be seen that Baili Hongzhuang's knowledge about inscriptions was not shallow. She should be very proficient in inscriptions. When thinking about this, Lu Qinyue felt that Baili Hongzhuang was a real freak. She could not imagine the future achievements of Baili Hongzhuang. What a freak. Lu Jinglin had a disdainful look in her eyes. She would never admit that Baili Hongzhuang was good. Maybe she just happened to hear someone mention the answer to this question. At such a tender age, how could she possibly understand and answer the questions of the inscription masters otherwise? When thinking about it, no one believed that the answer was something that Baili Hongzhuang had come up with on her own. After making sure that Baili Hongzhuang was seated, Bai Jingtian could not help but ask, "Little girl, how should we add the star powder? When should we add it?" After knowing that they could use star powder, he had more or less understood the problem. However, he wanted to know if this little girl would come up with the same solution as him. First add the fiery ardent stone, and then the black crow gold oregon. Add the condensate liquid together for 5 minutes, and then add it. For inscriptions, Baili Hongzhuang did not have absolute confidence, but she was very confident in configuring inscription liquids. Because during the time she had learned inscriptions in the Ring of Chaos, she had learned about the properties and different metal ores and what else to pay attention to when configuring inscription liquid. Just like the first thing to understand when studying alchemy was the understanding of the herbs. Only after learning the herbs could one start learning alchemy. The old man within the Ring of Chaos had a deep understanding towards inscriptions. Her memory was also very good. She was able to remember a large amount of metal ores and the differences between these metal ores in the long time she had been studying. Up until now, She still had a lot of things that were hard to understand for her, but most of the problems about configuring inscription liquid could be solved by her. However, when the words of Baili Hongzhuang fell, by Jingqian and the others all had puzzled expressions on their faces, this method was different from the one they had expected. Why should we add it after 5 minutes? Jima asked. He had never thought that Baili Hongzhuang would be so accurate, but he felt that this could be the correct way to do it, making him feel very excited. Star powder is a very strange thing. If it is added before this, the star powder will be added into the liquid. If the quantity is too little, it will not be able to completely neutralize it either. If you add too much, the effect of the inscription liquid will also drop a lot. The effect of the inscription drawn with that liquid will be greatly reduced. Therefore, after 5 minutes of trying to melt the two ores, when the conflict between the fiery ardent stone and the black crow gold is getting more and more intense, just add a small amount of star powder. Then the problem will be completely solved. The exquisite and perfect face was filled with confidence. The eyes of Baili Hongzhuang fell on the three elders. I don't know what you three seniors felt about it. Bai Jingtian and the other two had fallen into deep contemplation. What Baili Hongzhuang had said was very reasonable. What they had been thinking about before was to put these materials together before smelting them. But Baili Hongzhuang's method was much more suitable. Somehow this young little girl had opened a new door for them, making their vision wider. Yes, this method is excellent. It perfectly solves the problem. Qingqi was simply too excited. No matter what angle he considered it from, there was no problems with this. If there was no such solution, they were afraid they would have been fighting seriously to solve this problem. Bai Jingtian smiled a happy smile and asked, "Little girl, what is your name?" Compared to the previous dissatisfaction with Baili Hongzhuang, Bai Jingtian was now much more happy and found her extremely pleasing to the eye. Such a young and promising junior. He had not seen one in many years. It was indeed a great seedling in the inscription world. Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang stood up and saluted the elders. Seeing Baili Hongzhuang being so polite, Bai Jingtian's eyes were filled with admiration. Such young people were rare. Baili girl, how could you know how to solve this problem? Jima could not help but ask. The age of Baili Hongzhuang was just too young. If she was older, it'd not be so amazing as it was now. Oh, Baili Hongzhuang thought for a moment and then thought of the excuse she had used earlier. It seemed it was time to use it again. The younger generation had previously learned a lot from my master, so I was able to answer the question. Bai Jingtian and the other two men looked at each other. The answer of Baili Hongzhuang was modest, however the meaning was clear. Thinking like this, Bai Jingtian and the others felt that the master of Baili Hongzhuang was in no way a simple character. Baili girl, I wonder if you can tell me your master's name? Qin Xingwu's eyes were filled with curiosity. This famous teacher might be someone world-renowned. The fact that Baili Hongzhuang could have such achievements at such a young age showed that her master could not be a nobody. Baili Hongzhuang tried hard not to laugh as she answered, "My master has a strange temper. He's like a wild crane who likes to wander the world. He does not like me telling his name." Hearing this by Jingtian and the other two were not finding it strange. Some supreme experts like to live the life of a wild crane. Even they, as elders, were too lazy to pay attention to many disputes and issues in the mundane world. They just wanted to live leisurely lives. "We understand," Bai Jingtian waved his hand. "Your master must be renowned to be able to teach such a good student like yourself." Bai Jingtian knew that although he was an inscription master, next to Baili Hongzhuang's master, he could not lift his head at all. Because the disciple of this man could solve a problem they could not understand, this meant that the other was simply too powerful. "Girl, I have a question here. It is good if you could answer it for me." Ji Yimao revealed a curious gleam in his eyes. He wanted to know how much knowledge Baili Hongzhuang had about inscriptions. Answering their question might just be a fluke. Maybe she had just randomly heard her master mention this one question. Unless she could answer other questions, she was quite useless. "Please ask," Baili Hongzhuang smiled gently, and Bai Jingtian exchanged glances with the other men. She seemed to have returned to her past life where the old men had been trying to teach her and test her. She really missed this feeling. Cat's eye colored glass, stones, and fiery ardent stones. How do you dissolve them together into an inscription liquid? Fiery ardent stones were a metal that was often used when making inscriptions of the fire attribute. But because it was so violent, it was easy to have problems. Therefore, the inscription masters had a lot of questions about this stone. It was a love and hate relationship. Bai Jingtian and Qin Wu also smiled as they looked at Baili Hongzhuang. They also wanted to know if she could answer this question. The eyes of Baili Hongzhuang looked at the three faces, and a gentle smile spread on her lips. Cat's eye colored glass stones are mild and has no problem being mixed with the fiery ardent stone. It is just that the cat's eye colored glass stones are so hard that it is difficult to grind them into powder. However, it can be done if you add a bit of black meteor liquid. Then it can be dissolved. However, I had this idea that with the compatibility of the two, if you add a bit of fine powder from the gold-plated stone, I think that the effect of the inscription liquid would be even better. Baili Hongzhuang said directly. This was an idea she came up with after getting an extensive understanding of the different metal ores. At the same time, she also has her own ideas. Just like the old man in the Ring of Chaos, he often made some unexpected mixes and after some time achieved good results. Inscriptions is an art that required a variety of experiments to increase the performance of the inscription liquid. Golden-plated stone powder? Bai Jingtian frowned slightly. This idea had never been proposed before, but the golden-plated stone powder really had this possibility. If this is really possible, then the inscriptions he could draw would be increased in strength again. At the thought of this, Bai Jingtian was suddenly even more excited. No, I have to go back and try it. This method is really good. Bai Jingtian was filled with excitement. Why did he never think about this possibility before? Not only Bai Jingtian, also Jianma and Qin Wu were enlightened by Baili Hongzhuang's idea. Over the years, some issues had been causing them to have problems with their inscriptions. At this moment, the few words of Baili Hongzhuang seemed to help them enter a whole new world. Some of the problems that had been impossible to solve before were suddenly being able to find a solution to with her way of thinking. I need to hurry back and test these ideas. I will come back and talk with you later. Jianma was the first to say. At this current moment, many thoughts were flashing in his mind, and he had to go back now to try them all out. Otherwise, if this inspiration vanished and he forgot about it, then he would regret it. Seeing the three men vanish like this, Baili Hongzhuang could not help but grin. These old men were truly adorable. As soon as they were deeply engrossed in an idea, they had no chance to think about anything else. Wasn't this just too adorable? Jingqi looked at Baili Hongzhuang, unsure of what to say. It was obvious to her now that Baili Hongzhuang truly understood inscriptions. Not only did she understand inscriptions, she was able to discuss with the inscription masters on equal footing and even help these masters resolve some doubts. It would be reasonable to say that at her current age, that was impossible. Baili Hongzhuang was simply a monster. Seeing that the three inscription masters left like the wind one by one, Zhiqing and the others could not help but come to Baili Hongzhuang's side. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Hongzhuang, what happened? Zhiqing looked towards the exit. What happened to the three inscription masters? Not only Zhiqing, Gong Xiaoqing, and the others were all looking at Baili Hongzhuang with doubt. This was too weird. Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. They just thought of some very important questions. Everyone listened to Baili Hongzhuang's answer, but the doubts within their hearts did not dissipate. What kind of question could make all of them rush away in such a hurry? The cultivators of Beihai College could not help but look at Jingqi. They had previously worried that the inscription masters would be unhappy if they came too close, so they dared not advance. Therefore, they had no understanding of what happened. Jingqi shook her head at them. She was not sure how to explain it. Okay, has the inscription been picked out? Baili Hongzhuang asked. We picked one that was suitable for Gong Xiaoqing. Zhiqing smiled. Cui Haoyan and the others also nodded their heads. Gong Xiaoqing was the strongest among them, when not counting Baili Hongzhuang. With the strength of this inscription, his strength would definitely improve once more. As a result, he would be able to gain an even better result at the college tournament. After all, the college tournament would only care for the first place. The first place cultivator would determine the winner of the entire tournament. Depending on what college they came from, that college would win the tournament. Although they all thought they would do well, they might as well do their best to optimize their success rate. Baili Hongzhuang and Gong Xiaoqing were the two most promising people. Therefore, in the time of selecting who should have the inscription, no one was in doubt. Gong Xiaoqing was the one they all wanted to have it. That's great. Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. Gong Xiaoqing was already strong, and now he was even stronger. When the cultivators of Beihai College saw that Baili Hongzhuang and the others had solved the situation so indifferently, they also found it somewhat unbelievable. As a cultivator, was it really possible to be so modest? What mattered most was your own strength. The cultivators of Qiankun College were really different. They even faintly thought that they were promising, but they quickly let go of their thought again. Since we've already chosen one, let's leave. Baili Hongzhuang was smiling sweetly. Wubao Pavilion was truly worthy of its name, but they'd already seen it all. There was no point in staying any longer. Hearing this, everyone nodded their heads as they quickly headed for the stairs. Dear guests, walk slowly. Seeing that Baili Hongzhuang and the others were leaving, the shop assistant rushed out to say goodbye. The girl was simply too amazing and deserved respect. This was the first time someone had been able to answer the question, and it was also the first time that the three inscription masters had treated anyone like this. This alone showed how amazing Baili Hongzhuang was. After the people left the Wubao Pavilion, the practitioners of Beihai College also decided to leave very fast. However, they secretly decided to hurry back early in the following morning. Even if the price was high, they would get an inscription. Since they sold an inscription a day, they still had a chance. Let's return to the inn, Lu Qingyue said. The originally happy and excited mood was a bit complicated after meeting Beihai College. This group of people truly destroyed the mood. Zhiqing nodded slightly. We met a group of people who can destroy someone's appetite. I don't feel like walking about right now. Zhiqing's words did nothing to hide anything, so the sound could easily be heard by others. The cultivators of Beihai College also heard it, their expression becoming ugly in an instant. When the tournament begins, we have to teach them how to behave. Lu Jingqi's face was full of anger. Ever since meeting Zhiqing and the others, her mood had been bad. Jingqi, that Baili Hongzhuang really understood inscriptions? Lu Jinglin went to the side of Lu Jingwei and grabbed her hand. The eyes were filled with curiosity. Lu Jingqi nodded slightly. Looking at the way she was speaking with the three inscription masters, she should have understood them. Hearing the answer from Lu Jingqi, the feelings of Xiling and the others changed slightly. Being an inscriptionist was a very respected profession. Being an inscriptionist meant that one had a much higher status than others. I did not expect that Baili Hongzhuang would be an inscriptionist. Xiao Mei's lips curled into a slight smile, but did not reach his eyes, which stayed emotionless. The next morning, Huan Chuyou gathered Baili Hongzhuang and the others. The reason for this was that the president and the vice president of the Lingyin College had personally come to pick them up. This result did not surprise Baili Hongzhuang. She had already been expecting it. Old friend, long time no see. A middle-aged man wearing a black robe slowly walked in. Compared to Huan Chuyou, he was a lot younger. However, the appearance and temperament showed that he was far from ordinary. A simple glance at him, Baili Hongzhuang had already guessed his identity. This arrogant man was the principal of Lingyin College, Jian Qingxiu, that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.